Step 1, wake up, really gonna rise with the sun. Step 2, get some good, some food in you. Step 3, think real hard about what you wanna be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 Yo, set your affirmations, aspirations. I got shit to do, the aftermath of preparation. Good food, good mood, blood in circulation. One step at a time, yeah, that's how you make it. Set a goal you control and the steps you take them. I try to pick one thought, have some concentration. And if I make a mistake, it's called education. I try to do this every day, call it replication. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 So life ain't easy, yo. I think there's a reason, yo. Ups and downs, just like every different season, yo. Sometimes I'm high, other times I'm barely breathing, though. I always gotta fight and hide from the demons, yo. Negative thoughts are poison, they ride. Head full of flies, so here come the clouds. They'll never stop unless I can swap all the bad for the good in my head when I'm lost. Yeah, so I'ma fake it till I make it. Positive thoughts are overtaken, I got patience. One day at a time is how you operate a cadence. A flow, you grow, you show yourself a foundation. Stay away from all the shit that causes temptation. I know that I like to do it cause it's sensation. I live my life in my head like a narration. Don't expect greatness, do my best, man, I'll take it. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.
Wake up, really gonna rise with the sun. Step 2, get some good, some food in you. Step 3, think real hard about what you wanna be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
As you wake up in the morning, you will find the latest, greatest information about criminal cases and have an intuitive conversation about the suspects associated with these cases. Head over to the Bullhorn Betty channel on YouTube. Get breaking news right here on the Bullhorn Betty channel. Welcome to the Bullhorn Betty Coffee Club. Enjoy your stay and enjoy your day.
Well, hello, my beautiful people! TGIF, TGIF. Did I blow your ears out?
You know why? Fake news.
Well, good morning, my beautifuls. My beautifuls. It's so nice to see you. We've got so much to cover. Guys, we're going to be here for a while. I will tell you, we're probably going to be here in 3-4 hours. This show's probably going to be. And it's because we haven't had an opportunity to kind of kick it. This last week has been consumed by political stuff. I've been at the state capitol. I had an opportunity to speak on behalf of Charlie Kirk Remembrance Day here in the state of Florida for October 14th from this time forward to be the Charlie Kirk Remembrance Day for his sacrifice. And I couldn't have been at the most important place at the right time over this week to help, at least get that help through and push through the subcommittee. So before we get really started on this, I'm going to just kind of dovetail over to that because we got a lot of stuff going on between Greenland and Minnesota and other stuff. And then, of course, we're going to be going over to the Sebastian Rogers case because I was going to do that last night. But in all fairness, coming back from a 4-day trip, I was exhausted. I had a lot of stuff to unpack, get washed, put away. And by the time I finally got my thought process together, I was so stinking exhausted. All I wanted to do was just lay down and close my eyes. So as you guys can imagine, yesterday was kind of another just missed day. What we did earlier that day was about what we were going to get. So thank you guys for all being here. And thank you for all your love and support for me and this channel and the work that we do, not just here in true crime, but around the country politically and true crime, right? We bring stuff to you guys, to the front and center of you guys, so you guys can see what's going on. We're all about truth and transparency here on this channel, and we're all about not being perfect, okay? There are some things that move at a rapid pace, and some information gets skewed or lost in the shuffle or misunderstood. And so it is always the drive of this channel to get as much information accurate as possible. So without further ado, this is me before the subcommittee at the state capitol, the Florida state capitol in Tallahassee. It was a very memorable event. Many of you guys know I have been kind of praying on where we're going to be going next. Where am I going to be living? It's been very clear. I've made my position very clear to you guys. I'm tired of being here in Manatee County. I feel like I'm hitting my head against the wall. I feel like I'm not being able to control the politicians enough, with them getting elected and then doing whatever the hell they want to do. So it's really been identifying where the crucial problems are in our county government and identifying those quickly, because those things that are happening in my county are happening in counties across this country and across the state of Florida. So it's identifying the problem and then finding solutions to rectify the issue. And that's where we always have the battle back and forth and the wedge issues. Which way do we do it? How do we handle it? And stuff like that. So either way, I'm not going to bore you with my personal details here in the state of Florida, but if you know me and you know the work that I do, I'm not a self-serving person. I'm not going out here arguing for these things that will benefit me. As a matter of fact, the majority of everything that I argue or advocate for doesn't affect my world one bit, other than the fact that it's affecting thy neighbor. And so thy neighbor sometimes doesn't have the backbone or the wherewithal or the knowledge to be able to have a problem and address it appropriately or diplomatically throughout whatever county or state they're in. And that's why I try to teach you. And so we're going to be learning more about, so if you guys do want to get active in your communities, you know how. Many of you guys, even though you watch me, are still very green on how to get started. So I am going to probably do some lessons. We're going to be doing it on the smaller channel for those that are interested in learning how to become more active in your community. And I don't really care if you're independent, Democrat, or Republican, as long as we have a commonality of anti-lawlessness, right? We can have a lot of different approaches to a lot of different things, but the one thing that we need is law and order for any of us to do our work, whether you're Democrat, independent, or Republican. I am a Republican. I'm a conservative Republican. I voted for Trump 3 times. I've stumped for Trump. I've phone banked for Trump. I've done everything to put that man in that White House, including but not limited to driving all over the country in support of Donald J. Trump. So if that offends you, this is probably not the best channel for you. Okay, so I like to be honest and open with everybody that comes here to visit, because I think honesty is the best policy.
We are rights here. And when we are threatened because of our speech or our words, these are all we have in this country, because violence isn't the answer. Violence isn't the answer. So this proposal is rooted in something that should never be controversial in Florida or in this nation. Remembrance, gratitude, and the preservation of the values paid by sacrifice. And that's what Charlie Kirk did. He paid the ultimate price with his life or his speech, whether we agreed with it or not. I can promise you, I am a controversial person in the state of Florida. Very controversial. I don't deserve to lose my life because of my words. These are all I have. Again, violence is not the answer. Remembrance Day is not symbolic theater. It's a recognition that our freedoms were purchased at a real cost by real people, and those that sacrifices carry an obligation for those of us living in the presence. Charlie Kirk has been a consistent voice reminding Americans, especially younger youth and generations, that liberty is not sustainable by itself. It requires education, courage, and willingness to stand for constitutional principles and biblical principles. Remember, our civil rights, our civil laws, they're from Deuteronomy. They're from the Bible. This man had principles. He wanted to be known for his faith. I also want to remind you guys, at 18 years old, he co-founded Turning Points USA, which has a $200 million operating budget right now. This man knew what he wanted to do, and he went out there and showed the youth how to do it. He became a prominent voice in conservative youth activism, national and media presence, the youth's conservative leadership. This was an exemplary person in our country, somebody that moved me personally. And I hope all of you realize that this is an important Remembrance Day. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you. Andrew Sherville, waving in support. Aaron DePietro, Florida Family Voice,
good job,
waving in support.
So that, as you guys can see, sorry, I was making sure I wasn't missing anybody, because I kind of went ahead of this and didn't say good morning to all of you. So I'll be backtracking here in just a second to do some good mornings with all of you guys here. But it's nice to see you all. If you guys don't know who I am, I'm Bullhorn Betty. So good morning, Coffee Club. Today is going to be a little bit of a longer show, as I was explaining to you, probably closer to 4 hours today. But we're going to be talking about something far bigger than politics. We're going to be talking about, sorry, I have the wrong package up. Give me a second. Sorry about that. I got my church. We got another live going on later today, and I pulled up my package for that. But anyways, we're going to be talking about Greenland missile defense, immigration enforcement, and of course, the disappearance of a child. These are not separate issues. They're connected by one thing: whether the nation still has the will to protect its people. We're going to be talking about why President Trump is laser focused on Greenland. We're also going to be talking about Vice President J.D. Vance standing up for law enforcement in Minneapolis. And we're going to revisit the Sebastian Rogers case, specifically what's really happening behind the scenes related to certain warrants allegedly issued. And as always, we're going to do this by facts, context, and clarification, not emotional manipulation. We are not CNN.
It's all fake news. It's phony stuff. It didn't happen.
It didn't happen. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. Oh, I love that. That's so beautiful. I like the thumbnail. Sometimes these AI can really generate some stuff, but listen to this. I actually found out that there is almost a Photoshop alternative. I never knew this before. There's a Photoshop alternative that's actually an open source program. And so they don't charge you for anything. And it looks almost identical to Photoshop. It took me a second. I haven't used Photoshop in years, 2 or 3 years now. And it's not because I didn't want to. It's just because my computer broke and I couldn't afford to put the program on Mac, because you have a program for Windows and a program for Mac. They're not interchangeable. You can't use your stuff on your Windows because I buy the program. I don't pay the monthly fee. So it was designed just for the Windows program. And so I couldn't convert it over to Mac. So ever since I've had my Mac computer, which has been quite a long time since we went out to Idaho. When we went out to Idaho is when they smashed my computer with Southwest. So that's kind of where we've been since this inception. So anyways, guys, first we're going to be starting with Trump and Greenland and, of course, the national defense. People love to mock this issue, and they did it the first time Trump had brought it up. They called it absurd and imperialistic. But here's the reality. Greenland is not about land. It is about defense. Greenland sits in one of the most strategically important positions on Earth. It's the gateway between North America and Europe. And it's front line to early detection of missile threats coming over the Arctic. So what has changed? And this is what people don't understand. This is not like a barbaric measure. We've all been hearing about this Trump's Golden Dome missile defense system. And this is what it's about, because they want to put this missile defense system in Greenland. Because Greenland is one, it has a lot of land. It's ripe for building this type of project. It's definitely before the United States. So, you want something strategically placed for this type of defense. And so I think that a lot of talking heads might be, blowing this out of proportion. And there are a few things that I did uncover with all of this. And that is, we did see the protest in Greenland, but it wasn't a majority protest. It was truly just a sector. And right now, with all of the inflamed rhetoric and the fact that we, the American people, have been funding unrest all over the world, unbeknownst to us, of course, but we've been funding unrest all over the world. We've been funding protests all over the world, and it becomes a little cloudy for us to know what is authentic and what is not. And this is where I'm at with this. How do I know that those people weren't bought and paid for like they are over here? The selective outrage, if you will. Now, some will say we protected Greenland by proxy through Denmark and NATO for decades, and that is true. But again, this is the first time we have really been talking about upgrading our defense in such a long time. Real, legitimate upgrades for this new generation and technology. And I think that's where a lot of people are misguided in what we are truly trying to do here. So let's just move on, get some videos out so you guys can understand what is going on.
President Trump escalating his push for the U.S. to control Greenland, now issuing a new threat to allies that stand in his way.
I may put a tariff on countries if they don't go along with Greenland, because we need Greenland for national security.
For weeks, Trump has been turning up the pressure, saying the U.S. will have Greenland one way or another, a territory long controlled by our NATO ally Denmark. And Trump refuses to rule out military force to get it. Now 6 other NATO countries, including Germany, France, and the UK, surging forces to Greenland in support of Denmark.
So they preemptively, sent all these people So I just want to put this in perspective. Our NATO allies were willing to go to war with us. Okay, just to put that out there. So as far as NATO and me and my opinion of NATO, I'm not down with it. I think we are protecting the world, and when we need something done for certain things, we're not going to come down on begging and pleading, because at the end of the day, we're fine with letting all of these countries deal with their own defense and stepping back. Because I'm telling you, I'm not down with the world expecting us to pay for their protection and then fighting us when we need to do something for their protection. Okay? I'm not that kind of American. In my opinion, nobody should be that type of American. We don't do these things for any other purpose than to protect the world. Let's face it. Who in the world? Let me just do a poll here. Can we do a poll? Let me see if I can do a poll. Well, let me type the poll is the question. Ooh, it will. Let me see if it'll let me do this. Okay, hold on. Who would you rather trust with the world survival? Let's put it to a poll. There you guys go. I've got the poll, and it says, hey, sort of, Morta, it's nice to see you. So this is what my poll says. Can I hit it? Okay, it says, who would you rather trust with the world's survival? Anyone else or the USA? So I don't even really care, okay? And it's not even a Donald Trump thing either. It's just the USA, us as general, because Donald Trump's only got 3 more years. It's still going to be U.S. ran, it's going to we're still on the hook for everybody's, who does everybody come to when shit ain't going right in the world, right? Whether they like us or not, who do they come begging to? The USA. We all know that, okay? So, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm not going to be here fighting with the EU, fighting with this person, that person. I don't think America should. And just like Donald, we haven't gotten there yet. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's slow it up, sister. Pump the brakes.
President Trump tonight returning home, leaving allies rattled, but touting a win on Greenland, even as he says negotiations over a future deal are just getting underway.
Essentially, it's total access. There's no end. There's no time limit.
NBC News has learned the president has discussed adding U.S. troops and more military bases in Greenland, in part to support his Golden Dome missile defense system, still in its planning stages, according to 2 former U.S. officials. And the New York Times, citing 8 senior Western officials, reports proposals include giving America a sovereign claim over pockets of Greenland's territory, where U.S. bases would be located. Denmark's prime minister tonight saying we cannot negotiate on our sovereignty. And the president today acknowledging a deal might not include U.S. ownership of the Danish territory.
Anything's possible, but in the meantime, we're getting everything we wanted, total security, total access to everything, have as many bases, have all the equipment that we want.
An existing Cold War-era treaty between the U.S. and Denmark already allows the U.S. to expand its military presence in Greenland.
President Trump and other leaders are right. We have to do more there. We have to protect the Arctic against Russian and Chinese influence.
President Trump earlier launching his own international organization, the so-called Board of Peace, created after the Gaza ceasefire, where he's...
So it seems like there are a lot of people that do realize the benefit of this, as your guys are finding out. It's not all, BS. They do have some semblance of saying, we understand that we are being protected almost 90% from America, and America needs to continue that protection. If they're going to infiltrate or absolutely try to shutter our ability to protect ourselves as well as our allies, what do you do? Because we are the most responsible nation, in my opinion, in the whole entire world. Now, one time we may have been, neck and neck with Germany or the EU or, Britain or something like that. But unfortunately, they've allowed their countries to be invaded. They are no longer Western states. Thank you, Sorta Morta, because I'm a love machine. Ow! Welcome to this crazy family we call the Coffee Club, i.e. the insane asylum. You've been part of the family all too long. But thank you for the love and support. So I think this is something we need to watch for our national security. It's getting crazy out. I mean, it's getting crazy in our country. I mean, we're watching shit breaking off, everywhere in this country, right? So, I mean, in fairness, if our country is getting this insane, can you imagine the rest of the world? I mean, this can't be isolated just to Americas. The whole entire world is erupting in chaos, okay? We have got to do something that's going to protect us and our allies around this world from these animals that want us dead. And I think that this is going to be a good addition. We've got some good news on this front, just not quite yet. Let's keep moving on. This is going to be a little hard. It's kind of going back. I think I should have put this before that last video we just did.
So we want a piece of ice for world protection.
No, sorry.
And they won't give it. We've never asked for anything else. And we could have kept that piece of land, and we didn't. So they have a choice. You can say yes, and we will be very appreciative. Or you can say no, and we will remember.
And I absolutely believe we here in America will absolutely remember that, because again, it's not just for our national security, folks. It is for the world's security. This Golden Dome has to be built. Okay, we're approaching a new era in our country, in our world, right? And we need to be protecting ourselves from the new world threats. Now, our prior military stuff has been good. It's kept up. But we have to play the tape through and foresee the future without having a crystal ball, right? And we know that is impossible to do. So what do we do? What do smart people do? They prepare for the worst case scenario and pray that they never have to use it, right? And so I think that that's kind of where we are at right now with this whole situation. But guys, the good news is the deal's already inked, okay? It sounds like that they've made the agreement. Now they're just trying to get all the signatures. So it very vague. If people are asking what's going on with Greenland, I personally do not know. The details of the deal reached is still unknown at this time, but it does sound like America got everything it wanted. Now, does that mean that we now have a new country, or does that mean that we now have full control? We won't know until that information is released. I don't have a crystal ball. I have no knowledge on it. But it does sound like we have reached a deal, okay? And Donald Trump is the deal maker, right? He authored the art of the deal.
Welcome to Meet the Press Now. I'm Kristen Welker in Washington. We begin in Davos, Switzerland, where after delivering a grievance-fueled address to European leaders gathered at the World Economic Forum today and assailing many of America's closest allies, late this afternoon, President Trump abruptly changed course.
So what she's about to express is that we just heard the very first video that I presented to all of you guys talked about Trump issuing retaliatory tariffs. Those retaliatory tariffs she's about to acknowledge do not exist. He opted not to go through with that, but again, you're going to find out why.
Dropping his threat to place tariffs on European countries and announcing a framework agreement has been reached with respect to Greenland's future. The president speaking to reporters just moments ago saying the deal, quote, gets us everything we need, but offering very few details.
Well, we have a concept of a deal. I think it's going to be a very good deal for the United States, also for them. And we're going to work together on something having to do with the Arctic as a whole, but also Greenland?
It's not specific enough to know at this point how long this lasts, whether it's
forever.
Forever.
It'll be forever.
For Greenland at this point.
Yeah. Forever.
So, again, no real details on what this whole Greenland deal is really going to bring about. You know, what is the deal? We just know that whatever deal it is gets us everything that we want, and it's going to be put in place in perpetuity for forever. So that's as much as we have to report to each of you guys about this whole thing with Greenland. I find it very interesting. And not only that, but I like the fact that we are looking at the future of our United States defense, because, I mean, we've been let's be honest, the country has been very fortunate. You know, we've been here, we're about to celebrate 250 years. And while we did have some wars on our land early on in its infancy, we have built this great land, and we've also built an amazing military and military personnel that have protected us so much, because instead of allowing fights to come to us here on our land, when we know the fight is coming, we send our people to them. And that's what's kept us here on this land at peace and being able to still live and thrive, because we no longer wanted the wars to be on our land. And therefore, when we know that this is coming, we take our fight over there to protect the residents and the individuals and the American citizens here. So, you know, that is one of the best things that I can say about our military and our country, and God bless that. Because a lot of our military people have died to make sure that we can live. So please don't forget that. When war happens overseas, it happens in their countries. It happens in their backyards. And that's the one thing that we need to prevent here in the United States. And again, we've prevented war on these shores for a very, very long time. And we need to continue to do that, because our future, you know, we're all going to be dead and gone, most likely when something may approach this land. And we want to make sure that our ancestors, you know, that our next generation, well, we'll be the ancestors, but our next generations, you know, our family that's going to be after us, we need to make sure that they're protected. And the only way we're going to protect them is doing these things now. Do we know what the future holds? Of course not. Nobody does, right? We pray to God that Iran and you know, Iraq, you know, come back to what they used to be in the 1970s and 1980s. Guys, I'm going to tell you, you guys need to go do your history lesson. What is going on in those countries, in those Middle Eastern countries, is not fair to the people. They didn't ask for this. Do you know they used to live like we did? They didn't have to wear those burqas. They didn't have to be in all black. They dressed like we dress over here back in those days. Did you know that? They may have had some scarves over their heads and stuff like that, but they weren't in fear of losing their life. And I don't care what anybody tells you. I saw photos. I truly saw real, legitimate, historical photos from the 60s, 70s, and 80s in those countries, and it looked nothing like it looks now. So don't tell me that those people signed up for this. They did not. But again, it is not our fight. If they want to be liberated, they have to be willing to do it themselves. We wanted to be liberated. We had to fight. But we're not going to continue to fight for all of these countries that need to be liberated. Their people need to get backbones and stand up for themselves. And we'll help them rebuild after they do what they need to do. But at the end of the day, you know, I feel bad for people overseas, especially people that just want to live in peace and they can't. But we can't bring threats here because we have bleeding hearts, okay? We can't put ourselves in danger because somebody may look like they want our help when they really don't. They want to later cause us problems. So just be very, very, very careful. And as we're dropping the temperature in this country, we had J.D. Vance meet and end up going and speaking in Minnesota. Now, this whole situation with our vice president having to go to Minnesota, in my opinion, should have never gotten this far. Vice President went to Minnesota to talk about immigration policy, law enforcement, and public safety. Predictably, social media exploded. Viral videos flooded timelines, short clips, no context, maximizing outrage. J.D. Vance addressed that head on. He acknowledged that these videos can concern people, but he also told the truth, the rarely told story, the whole story. And so I have opted, and this is one of the reasons why I told you guys this is going to be a very, very long live when we started, that this live today is going to be 3 to 4 hours, probably closer to 4 hours or even a tad bit over. And it's because I'm going to play this in its entirety, and this here is about 30 minutes. But I think everybody needs to see this. Everybody needs to know what is going on in this country. Everybody has a right to know what is going on in Minneapolis and why we have not called for the Insurrection Act. And I think I covered that on an earlier live. So this is going to be the last political talking conversation we're going to have before we dive into Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers and his case and getting some updated and some clarity on some information that we've heard about and that's now being talked about. And so we're going to be moving those conversations forward and opening up, talking points on that as well. So just stay tuned.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are we doing? Good. So I want to thank the law enforcement officers behind me for being here. I'll answer a few questions, but I want to say just a few things at the outset, just about what I've learned today and what I'm trying to do here. First of all, I want to give a shout out to the Annunciation school shooting families, because the last time I was in Minneapolis, it was, of course, to meet with some of those families. I understand that a couple of the students have made near miraculous.
And I just want to make sure that you guys know I am still here and watching. If you guys have questions, I will be putting them back up on the screen. But I'm not going to be interrupting the vice president because, again, this is the VP of the United States of America that took his time out to go out to Minnesota, review what was going on in Minnesota, and, gave his opinion of what he saw and how we can make this a lot safer. So because he's the VP, we do not interrupt the VP, okay? We do not interrupt President Trump. So I'm going to play this in its entirety, and then we will further discuss. So I'll try to pick up so you guys can, if you guys are talking in the chat, you guys can see some of the talking points that are coming about. And then again, after we're wrapped up with this story, we will be moving on with Sebastian Rogers for those that are here for Sebastian Rogers. And again, it's going to be a lengthy closing as well, because we're going to be talking about Sebastian Rogers and doing some work on that in real time.
Miraculous recoveries, and just that was a very special moment for me to be invited into that community at a time of grief. And I hope that all of them know that though I didn't get to see them this particular time, I've been thinking about them and their families quite a bit. Now, to talk about what I am here to do, which is federal law enforcement to enforce our immigration laws, I want to say just a few things. First of all, I wanted to meet with business leaders, with ICE officers, with local law enforcement to try to understand a little bit better what's going on so that we can tone down the temperature a little bit, reduce the chaos, but still allow us as a federal government to enforce the American people's immigration laws. That is the purpose of my visit. Now, this is step one or step two of that process. There's going to be a lot of work that follows through from here. I'm happy to talk about that, but I think I learned a few things that were very important. So number one of the things I learned is that the guys behind me are doing an incredible job, and frankly, a lot of the media is lying about the job that they do every single day. Now, it doesn't mean that there aren't occasionally stories out there, there aren't occasionally videos out there that suggest that these guys, or at least some of the people who work for them, are not doing everything right. But very often, if you look at the context of what's going on, you understand that these people are under an incredible amount of duress, an incredible amount of chaos, and because of a few very far left agitators, a lot of these guys are unable to do their jobs without being harassed, without being doxxed, and sometimes without being assaulted. That's totally unacceptable. And that's one of the things that I want to send a message to is, yes, come out and protest me, protest our immigration policy, but do it peacefully. If you assault a law enforcement officer, the Trump administration and the Department of Justice is going to prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. And I wanted to show some support for these guys who, frankly, are operating in a very, very tough environment. I heard a lot of stories today about that I think drives home just how chaotic the environment on the ground here has already gotten. For example, did you know that within the last, I think, week or so, maybe even more recently than that, you had a couple of ICE officers who were off duty, who had been doxxed online, who were sitting and having a meal at a restaurant in Minneapolis when a bunch of agitators showed up, locked the door, made them feel like they were in danger for their lives, and then, of course, it was federal law enforcement officers who had to come up, lower the temperature on the situation, and actually get those two off-duty officers to a point of safety. Now imagine, if you would, your life and your perspective on law enforcement if you can't even go to a restaurant without some agitators locking the door and making you feel like your life is in danger. That is the environment that has been created, I think, by a lot of very, frankly, far-left people, but also by some of the state and local law enforcement officials who could do a much better job in cooperating and working. And by the way, I'm not talking about the cops, who these guys told me on the ground, the cops are very sympathetic to what they're dealing with. I'm talking about the state and local elected law enforcement officials who could do a lot better job in making their lives a little bit easier. And in the process, they would make the lives of all Minneapolis residents easier, and that's what we want. We want to be able to enforce the immigration laws on the one hand, while on the other hand, we want to make sure that people in Minneapolis are able to go about their day. And I want to say just one last point on this. So I heard from a business leader today who told me a very tough story, and I think so much of what's gone wrong in Minneapolis is people not trying to understand the perspective of somebody else. Try to understand what somebody else is experiencing, whether they're a law enforcement officer or anybody in the community here in Minneapolis. So they told me a story about this manufacturing facility where an illegal immigrant was being arrested. And as these employees are going into the manufacturing facility, all of a sudden an illegal immigrant shows up. They don't know it's an illegal immigrant. And then a bunch of ICE officers descend. Now, these people just want to go to work. They want to go to work safely. And now all of a sudden there's a major law enforcement operation happening right outside their place of business. Now, from one perspective, I certainly understand why a business leader or why an employee would say, whoa, what's going on? It's a little scary, no matter your position in life, if a bunch of cop cars show up and they're arresting somebody. Now, the additional context is that we know that people online have been encouraging illegal immigrants that one way they can evade arrest is by showing up at a legitimate place of business, making it impossible for these guys to actually enforce our immigration laws. So while I can understand the perspective of somebody who doesn't want to see an arrest happen at their place of work, I can also understand the perspective of our immigration enforcement officers who have to do their job and can't allow a heckler's veto over our immigration enforcement. And so much of what's gone wrong is the failure to do that. And here's the point. We can do a good job of enforcing our immigration laws without the chaos, but it actually requires the cooperation of state and local officials. If you look at blue cities and blue states, red cities and red states, you go to Austin, Texas, or Memphis, Tennessee, you go to the state of Texas, obviously a very red state, or the state of Tennessee, a very red state, but you've got blue cities within those states, you do not have this level of chaos. The reason why things have gotten so out of hand is because of failure of cooperation between the state and local authorities and what these guys are trying to do. We have a ton of resources, a ton of ICE agents in this city right now that I would rather us not have. I'd love to send those guys home. They're not even doing targeted immigration enforcement. They are trying to protect ICE officers who are doing immigration enforcement, because when a crowd surrounds them and these guys call 911, the local officials, the local cops have been told to stand down. So we have people here who aren't even doing immigration enforcement, they're doing force protection, so that if a rioter tries to ruin the life or assault an ICE officer, they're actually protected. Now, why doesn't it make more sense for the local cops to get involved in that situation? Why not just have the mayor or the local officials tell the police officers, you know what, if an ICE officer is being assaulted by a far-left agitator, you are invited, you should actually help them. That's what would work out in any normal situation, and that's what happens in nearly every jurisdiction, red or blue, in the United States of America. The reason it hasn't happened here is because the local authorities have been told, stand down, do not help ICE, promote the violence, promote the agitation, but don't do anything to lower the temperature and lower the chaos. That's a problem. Here's another example of how the lack of cooperation between state and local officials makes it harder for us to do our job and turns up the temperature. Let's say, for example, we have a criminal migrant who is a sex offender. And let's say that we've got to go and arrest that person who, Democrat or Republican, wants a sex offender living in their community. I would assume, I would hope that most people don't. But because they're an illegal alien, we don't know their last address. We may have known their address 3 years ago, but we don't know their address now. What we'd like to do is talk to local officials and say, you know what, according to the Medicaid rolls, where was the last address this person was domiciled? Or according to a SNAP application, a food stamps application, maybe that could give us insight to where this person is today. Or maybe they had some local court trouble. We could go to the local courthouse or even the local jail and try to find where this criminal sex offender is today. The local authorities have been told, do not cooperate. So these guys are trying to go out and enforce the law. They're trying to arrest sex offenders, but they're trying to do it in an environment where local officials have been told, do not help them, do not provide intelligence about where these sex offenders might be. This is disgraceful. And there are a lot of things that all of us could do better to lower the temperature, but the number one thing that I learned today is that the best way to facilitate reasonable enforcement of the law, but also to lower the chaos in Minneapolis, would be for state and local officials to cooperate. Now, I will say, on one final positive note, I actually think that there's some hope, some reason to think that there's going to be better cooperation in the weeks and months to come. I think that because I've talked to some of the local officials here. I think there are reasons to believe that these people are going to step up and actually ask the cops to protect our ICE officers when they're being assaulted, who are going to ask the local courts to cooperate with getting criminal sex offenders out of our community. That's a good thing. That's the good news, and that's something I'm going to work on when I get back to Washington. But please, if you're a local official, if you're the mayor of this town, if you have any influence over those people, just tell them to cooperate. Because we could have immigration enforcement operate as smoothly and without the chaos that we see in Austin, Texas, or Memphis, Tennessee, or even rural parts of the state of Minnesota. All we need is a little cooperation. I guarantee we're going to do the best to be professional, to respect people's rights, to not do anything that we don't have to do in order to enforce immigration laws, but it would make our lives a lot easier, it would make our officers a lot safer, and it would make Minneapolis much less chaotic if we had a little bit of cooperation from the state and local officials. With that, I'll shut up and take some questions. Thank you, guys.
Vice President Pence, a local school district here is alleging ICE agents detained a 5-year-old after preschool on Tuesday.
I'm going to read these questions to you if I hear them, just in case they're not coming in clear. It sounds very crystal clear to me on my end, but they're asking about the 5-year-old. Now, as many of you guys know, if you've been paying attention, the story that originally went around was absolutely 100% untrue. So let's go ahead and let me put this back on a spot where you guys can see me. There we go. Hi, guys. If you guys are just joining, I'm Bullhorn Betty. We're covering true crime. We're covering the visit from Vice President J.D. Vance to the Minnesota area in trying to figure out what is truly going on out there. He went boots on the ground to give an assessment of how we could be doing better and, you know, not bringing the chaos, so to speak, to their streets. And it really does work only with the cooperation of local government and them not inciting their community to attack the law enforcement officers. So it sounds like they are going to be cooperating. We also denoted that there was no comment made by either Mayor Fry nor Governor Walz in relation to comments that they had asked for in relation to the vice president's visit to the area. So I think with the threat of this federal investigation that they're underway with them right now, with the fact that we have arrested the church agitators, and we are making a very, very strong position that violence is not an answer. The Americans are, the American people, our American government, and we're still fighting with a lot of agitators, paid agitators from the left that are being shipped in. They're shipping them into the state of Florida for certain things around this state. So I'm going to be eyeballing some things around the state of Florida and maybe getting involved in more of a boots on the ground approach to find out are people still violating rights of journalists, citizen journalists, and the public around the state of Florida. And it sounds like they still are. It sounds like they are still trying, like in St. Augustine, trying to arrest people for asking questions on public property. And that is one thing I will not ever, that's what happened to me in Sumner County, as many of you guys know, and we're still fighting that to this day. So long story short, I'll be reading this, and the first question is about the 5-year-old that was detained by ICE. Of course, that's what was said by mainstream media. Couldn't be further from the truth. That's why we come to social media to get the true news and the truth.
We've also seen multiple American citizens detained by ICE or harassed by ICE in the last 6 weeks. Are you proud of how your administration is conducting this?
Wow, that's condescending.
Well, I'm proud of the fact that we're standing behind law enforcement, and I'm proud of the fact that we're enforcing the country's laws. But, you asked a question about this 5-year-old kid. I actually saw this terrible story while I was coming to Minneapolis. We just left Toledo, Ohio this morning for an economic messaging event. And I see this story, and I'm a father of a 5-year-old, actually, a 5-year-old little boy. And I think to myself, oh my God, this is terrible. How did we arrest a 5-year-old? Well, I do a little bit more follow-up research. And what I find is that the 5-year-old was not arrested, that his dad was an illegal alien. And then when they went to arrest his illegal alien father, the father ran. So the story is that ICE detained a 5-year-old. Well, what are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to let a 5-year-old child freeze to death? Are they not supposed to arrest an illegal alien in the United States of America? If
the stupidity, folks, is unremarkable in mainstream media. The sheer irresponsibility, no journalistic integrity, leave it to ABC, NBC, CBS, and the alphabet soup of propaganda machines all over the United States. If you want the truth, folks, you need to come to social media. You need to be watching Benny Johnson. You need to be watching a bunch of other people on X if you want the truth. Mainstream media is never going to be honest with you until we put forward the Charlie Kirk Act.
the argument is that you can't arrest people who have violated our laws because they have children, then every single parent is going to be completely given immunity from ever being the subject of law enforcement. That doesn't make any sense. No one thinks that makes any sense. Now, you know, there are so many of these cases like that where if you just understand the context, there have been a number of situations that I've looked into personally where I say, wait a second, we don't want ICE arresting American citizens. They're supposed to be enforcing the immigration laws against illegal aliens. So then I look into it and I find out that the American citizen who was arrested took a swing at an ICE officer.
Oh! Once again, you mean, you know what? Once upon a time, journalists got fired in mainstream media if they intentionally told a lie. They would be fired. They would be fired very publicly, nonetheless, as well, for their lie. This new age propaganda bullshit, it's amazing how every single story that is produced by ABC, NBC, MSNBC, and the alphabet soup of our country mainstream media in the majority, not the minority. We still have some people that like News Nation. I'm Chris Como. I'm sorry. News Nation is starting to get a bad rap with me to have a whack job like Chris on their team. So it's just getting to the point where you got a news anchor for News Nation telling people, what do you need? You need to be slapped in the face and stuff like that. That's real professional. Real professional. That man's going to get you guys sued. Man's going to get you guys sued. And it might be Bullhorn Betty that sues you, News Nation. You never know. I might want to go there and talk to Fredo a little bit. Isn't that what pissed him off, Fredo? Didn't he get in a fight with somebody? Like, News Nation, you got a violent MFer. News Nation's put out, I don't know how many stories on Bullhorn Betty. I don't know how many. I don't know how many are still out there. I don't know how many times they put my name on them. And, and not the best. I mean, Brian Enton, he'll always speak positively about me because I know him personally and he knows me personally. I'm not a bad person, right? But the other people that don't really know me and just hear what the hate channels say about some of the antics that I do, whatever, it's in my right. I can do whatever the hell I damn well please. But then you got a whack job like Chris Como that literally slaps somebody that is sued at a restaurant while he's drunk, and you go and hire him, and now he's talking on freaking X and other places about slapping somebody again. When are you guys going to get a lesson? Because I can make somebody freaking climb a flipping wall. And I'm almost tempted to make sure he's on your dime when I make him climb a wall just so he smacks me. Just so I can sue the shit out of you. He is a problem, and News Nations needs to fire Chris Como. I'm sorry. There's no other question in my mind. Chris Como needs to be fired. But I digress. It is so blatantly obvious that every single story coming out of mainstream media when it has to do with politics is polar opposite. You could almost guarantee almost 99.9% of the time, or in this case, 93% of the time, that the coverage from related to politics is going to be opposite. If ABC says this, then it's that, okay? It's the exact opposite of what these news stations are feeding the public. If you want the truth, just look at it in opposite. Whatever it's opposite day. So if they say the vice president did something bad, then somebody did something bad to the vice president. You see how that works? But that was all for fun and games. That was satire in all fairness. That was satire. It was a joke. It was a joke though. Never wanted to be BH. Yeah. Good. I don't want that screaming. Oh yeah, I do. I that screaming, you can't get away from Leilani dancing on the fence, asking Leilani for a date. We need to go back to that. I think we have that on camera. Oh, hey, Happy Cappy. It's nice to see you. 3 out of the oven plus 9.5 plus 5 plus a half. Good gracious, you guys are a growing family. Okay, let's get back to this.
You can't have that happen. And of course they have to defend themselves. And of course they have the right to detain somebody who assaults a law enforcement officer. Now, this is my point. Do we want these things to happen? Do we want these arrests to be so chaotic? No, we don't. These guys want it least of all. But if we had a little cooperation from local and state officials, I think the chaos would go way down in this community.
Amen.
President! Go ahead.
After the Renee Good shooting, sir, the administration seemed to...
Yeah, well, you can go next.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I thought you pointed it out.
No, that's fine. I'll take both.
After the Renee Good shooting, sir, the administration seemed to... After the Renee Good shooting, the administration seemed to suggest that ICE officers enjoyed near complete immunity. But today you told the Washington Examiner that when appropriate, the administration might take disciplinary actions against ICE agents. So is that a change in opinion? And if so, why the change in tone?
No, I didn't say, and I don't think any other official within the Trump administration said that officers who engaged in wrongdoing would enjoy immunity. That's absurd. What I did say is that when federal law enforcement officers violate the law, that is typically something that federal officials would look into. We don't want these guys to have kangaroo courts. We want them to actually have real due process, real investigation, because again, sometimes they're accused of wrongdoing, and it turns out when you learn the context, they didn't actually do anything wrong.
Amen.
But of course, we're going to investigate these things. Of course, we're investigating the Renee Good shooting, but we're investigating them in a way that respects people's rights and then ensures that if somebody did something wrong, yes, they're going to face disciplinary action, but we're not going to judge them in the court of public opinion. I've spoken at length on this particular case. I think that Renee Good's death is a tragedy. I also think that she rammed an ICE officer with her car.
Amen.
So the tragedy here is multi-layered. The tragedy is there was a misunderstanding. The tragedy is that Renee Good lost her life. The tragedy is that you have ICE officers who are going into communities where they're worried that if they call 911, no one's going to come to help them. That is what produces this terrible situation, and it's something state and local officials here in Minnesota could solve. Yes, sir.
Could you give us a message towards March for Life tomorrow, especially in regard to this cooperation and family values? It's a shame that kids have to get caught up in all this, and towards that, sir.
Well, it is a shame that kids have to get caught up in this. I am speaking at March for Life tomorrow. I'm pro-life, and I'm very excited to speak there. I want to talk about local law enforcement, but I am. As a child, I saw people in my family get arrested. It's terrible. It's heartbreaking. It's chaotic. It's traumatic for the kids. I can recognize that, and I can recognize that we got to support these kids, while on the other hand saying that just because you're a parent doesn't mean that you get complete immunity from law enforcement.
Amen.
And I think we have to hold both of those thoughts in our head at the same time. We've got to be sympathetic to the kids who are caught up in some of these enforcement actions. We've also got to say we have to enforce the law without bias, with fairness.
Amen.
But we've got to enforce
He's
the law.
right.
Mr. Vice President.
He's right. He's right. You know what? He's right. And this whole thing about this bleeding heart, this selective outrage, this manipulation of the truth, it is what's driving the animosity and anger. And this is what mainstream media knows will happen. They know their rhetoric is causing these problems. We all know their rhetoric is causing these problems. We want truth. The people, the public wants truth and transparency, not propaganda, but they don't care about what we want. Why? Because we, the American people, through our NGOs and the fraud that's happening around this country, are funding these people. They're making too much money off the backs of the middle-class American people through fraud to actually give a damn. Who could have uncovered this fraud a decade ago? Who? Mainstream media. And at the end of the day, I know we have some trolls coming in here to try to thwart the system as far as our polling. And I know that we don't have 13% of white liberals in our channel. I can almost 100% guarantee that. So this is one person with multiple accounts modifying and manipulating a poll that they would not otherwise be able to. Because at the end of the day, white liberals and Blank Screen specifically, which if you guys would like to know who he is, please go to my X channel. We are trying to locate him. He does have a federal, we need to find him. Anyways, if you guys can help, I greatly appreciate that. But anyone else here, I can tell you that we just don't have this kind of white liberal presence in our channel. They don't like us. Like, we run them off. So I know that these have been manipulated, but it was about 90%. That 93%, I believe that to be the truth. It's down at about 86% because of the animals. So I'm not even going, look at that. So you guys, if you guys can, because now he's starting to hit all of his channel, you can see it in real time. What a jerk. I will tell you right now, I hate white liberals. So if you're a white liberal, please leave my channel and never come back. Okay? Like, I am a racist, okay, when it comes to white liberals. I hate white liberals. The only type of people I hate, that I actually hate. I can tell you I hate them. I think they're a cancer in this country. And until they pull their head out of their ass, I want nothing to do with them. Do I believe they're redeemable? Of course I do. Anybody's redeemable, but they have to want. I can tell you this: when I went to the Florida Capitol, there was once upon a time you wouldn't be able to go into the Florida Capitol and be able to look at somebody and tell whether they're a Democrat or a Republican. Okay, this is a true story. And when we were at the Capitol, you could absolutely tell the difference between the Republicans and the Democrats. The Democrats look like shit. They look like ghetto trash, purple hair, piercings, tattoos. All the activists that were there looked putrid, okay? They're an embarrassment to a human race, okay? People are offended. I don't care. I don't care. But you could absolutely tell the difference. You had prominent people there that cared about their appearance and everything else, and then you had the fucking Democrats. Welcome to the new Democratic Party, okay? You're trash. Okay? Your party is trash. And I'm sorry for the Democrats in here that are good people that you guys can't see it, or you're beholden to the D name. I don't know why, but I can tell you your party is trash. Just straight up ghetto trash. All the way around. It's disgusting. The people that represented the Democrats at the Florida Capitol were an embarrassment. Y'all need to do better. If you want people to take you seriously, you need to do better. And that's the message. I'm going to shut up for the rest of these questions so we can get through all of these.
There was a class in St. Cloud a few weeks ago, and their mayor said they haven't heard about this thing in the city, and how this ICE can proactively work with these local agencies, what are those policies, and what's your response to that?
You said there was an altercation in St. Cloud. Yeah.
After the incident, the mayor said that ICE did not communicate with them they were in the city for immediate operation, but police chief did not know about the operation at the time. Could you talk a little bit about proactive communication?
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the takeaways. I've talked with these guys before we came on the stage, but during our roundtable and some of the other conversations we've had, communication, we absolutely want to ensure there's good communication between federal officials and state and local officials, and I'm sure that we can do better on that. We absolutely want to make sure that we are communicating, but that also requires a two-way street, and that's the point that I make about state and local officials. These guys will absolutely communicate with state and local officials. They'll tell people if they have to do an enforcement operation in a particular municipality, but part of that is they also want to ensure that if they're communicating about their whereabouts, that's not being used as a weapon against them. Sometimes they tell people where they're going, and then they find out that their agents' faces are on on Reddit or on some social media thread saying, here's this guy, we know he's going to be at this place at this exact time. So that communication has got to be a two-way street. These guys are going to communicate with business leaders, with local officials, with state officials, but we also need the local officials and state officials to do a good job of protecting people when they're in their communities. We're not asking, by the way, we don't want any police officer in this community, in this state, to help us do immigration enforcement. We've got that. But if a protester shows up and that protester turns violent against our immigration officers, we really, really need the cooperation of our local partners. We haven't gotten it yet, but I think if we do, we really can lower the temperature. Yeah.
I can't understand that question.
Yeah, so I saw that story, and the story is like so much that I read in the mainstream media. It's missing a whole lot of context, and when you appreciate the context, it makes sense. No one is saying, look, there are exceptions. For example, a crazy exception, if somebody is fired at from inside a house, they don't need a warrant to go inside that person's house. There are very narrow exceptions to the warrant requirement where law enforcement officers don't need a warrant if, for example, they're an imminent threat of their lives. But what we've said and what ICE has proposed, what the Department of Homeland Security really has proposed in the Department of Justice, is that we can get administrative warrants to enforce administrative immigration law. Now, it's possible, I guess, that the courts will say no, and of course, if the courts say no, we would follow that law, but nobody is talking about doing immigration enforcement without a warrant. We're talking about different types of warrants that exist in our system. Typically what happens, not always, but typically in the immigration system, those are handled by administrative law judges. So we're talking about getting warrants from those administrative law judges, and then of course, with other cases, you get judges, or you get warrants from a judge. That's very consistent with the practice of American law. I'm sure the courts will weigh in on that, but we're never going to enter somebody's house without some kind of a warrant, unless, of course, somebody's firing on an officer or they have to do something.
Faye, the answer to your question is no illegal immigrant has a right to vote in our elections, however many are. At the will and the corrupt Democrat Party that are giving them licenses, Social Security cards, and all of American benefits, leaving the Americans without.
In order to protect themselves. Go ahead.
Do you believe that you can forcibly enter with an administrative warrant, or would that be a violation?
Well, our understanding is that you can enforce the immigration laws of the country under an administrative order if you have an administrative warrant. That's what we think. That's our understanding of the law. That's our best faith attempt to understand the law. Again, this is something courts will weigh in on. I won't speak to that. But yes, most immigration law in our country is not done through the criminal system with the judge. It's done through the administrative law system. We're going to continue that practice just as they did in the Biden administration or any other administration.
So you guys understood that, right? Like they're trying to manipulate people and say, oh, well, you only had to admit. This is, again, the manipulation and the propaganda from mainstream media, where they're telling you, oh, this is just an administrative order. An order is an order, folks. Let me just be honest with you. First and foremost, an order to remove somebody from this court is an order to remove somebody, or not from the court, but from this country, is an order, okay? An order signed by a judge is an order, okay? So they're wanting a criminal order. When has any of our immigration enforcement been criminal? Unless it has truly been a criminal enforcement. But most of them, like he said, never go to criminal court. This is all administrative. Booting people out of the country is not criminal court stuff. It's administrative court stuff. Now, for some, we may go ahead and give them, depending on their charges, may decide to charge them with a crime before we boot them out of this country. We may decide to make them sit in our jails for 20 years before we kick them out of the country. But those are cases in and of themselves, but the majority of our immigration and immigration enforcement is done administratively, not criminally. And that's just, again, the mainstream media manipulating the situation and not informing the people that are listening. And I think people need to learn. And just think of it like this. If mainstream media is saying it, it's just the opposite of what they're saying.
Is there anything that you heard or saw today that would cause you to talk to the president to invoke the Insurrection Act? And then also, did you meet or talk to...
This is about the Insurrection Act.
I did not talk to him today. I talked to some of his colleagues. Your question on the Insurrection Act is interesting. I've tried to understand this as well as I possibly could, and my understanding is what the Insurrection Act, what invoking the Insurrection Act would allow the federal government to do is that it would allow the federal government to use the military for local law enforcement operations. Right now, we don't think that we need that. Now, the president could change his mind. Of course, things could get worse. But right now, we think that federal law enforcement officers can do the job of federal law enforcement. Now, what I do worry about, again, is if the chaos gets worse, if more and more ICE agents start getting assaulted, if other law enforcement officers start getting assaulted, that would be a real problem. But again, we have so much federal law enforcement resources here right now. We have so many people here that we do not want to have here. I do not want so many ICE officers in Minneapolis right now. I mean, good Lord, it's really, really freaking cold outside. But they're here not even to enforce immigration laws, but to protect the people from the rioters. That's an absurd state of affairs, and we wouldn't need it if we had a little bit more cooperation from the Minneapolis Police Department. Again, the Minneapolis Police Department, my understanding is that the actual beat cops on the ground, they would love to help out, but they're being told by somebody, I don't know if it's Mayor Frey, they're being told by somebody not to cooperate at all. What kind of a person tells Their local police don't protect somebody if they're being assaulted by a rioter. It's crazy, and it's got to stop. Yes.
Earlier this week, local law enforcement accused federal agents of racial profiling. Why are there so many U.S. citizens being caught up in this operation?
So they're talking about being profiled. First, it's okay to profile according to immigration operations because clearly very limited immigrants, I mean, unless they're like Somali or Haitian or something like that, or Irish or Scottish or British or English. And then you can go like to France and Spain and, you know, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, the majority of the immigrants that have been the problem are of the Hispanic descent. There has been some that are African natives, Cubans, Hondurans. There have been some that are not in the Hispanic makeup, but the majority are. And so for you to say, oh, we can't identify people, Turks, yep. We can't identify, you know, people that have accents. If you're born from America, if you're born in America, you typically speak American, okay? You don't have a problem struggling with English if you're born in our country, okay? Even if you have a family that doesn't speak English and speaks Spanish, so you have a Spanish, you still speak Spanish and English. It doesn't matter. If you are born in the United States and you go through our education system, you are English speaking. Okay, so people that aren't speaking English have a high probability of being here illegal, more so than somebody that speaks well English, okay, or English well. So, you know, that can be said. And it's been upheld in the courts that they have every right to do this, by the Supreme Court, I'm pretty sure.
Well, I think your question assumes something that's not necessarily in evidence, which is that when there are American citizens who have been caught up in some of these enforcement operations, very often it is people who have assaulted a law enforcement officer. They're not being arrested because they violated the immigration laws. They're being arrested because they punched a federal law enforcement officer. That is a totally reasonable thing. Now, to the accusation of racial profiling, you know, look, it's something that we take very seriously. We will take accusations of racial profiling back to Washington. We'll certainly look into them as they come up. But this is not a group that's going around and looking for people who violated the law based on skin color.
Right.
They're looking for people who violated the actual law, the law of our immigration system in this country. And so long as we had more cooperation, I think they could do these things in a much more targeted way. Mm-hmm. They would actually know where some of the bad guys are. I mean, again, you hear things that are hard to believe, but I've confirmed that they are true. Sex offenders who we're trying to get off the streets, who the local officials won't tell us their last known address. So then the local officials say, oh my God, these guys are doing widespread targeted enforcement operations when in reality, we would love to just go to one house. The local officials won't tell us which one house to go to.
Mr. Vice President.
So this does support what I had previously said, that it's the local and state that's creating this issue, and then polarizing it and blaming it on the Trump administration when it's been them this whole entire time. And we the people are not stupid, especially the ones on social media, because we deal with this with the hate channels all the time and the manipulation tactics. So we here already know how this stuff works, you know, but people out there that don't or never experienced it, you know, when they see stuff on ABC, they believe it. They know it's true, or they think it's true, you know? And the reality is ABC is no longer news. They're propaganda. And you can tell it just, you can read any other news article other than MSNBC, NBC, and ABC, and you get, you know, a better quality understanding, you know, not perfect, but a better quality understanding than what you hear on those mainstream media. And those are the ones that have the broadcasting license. That means they're using our frequencies, the United States frequencies, to spread their propaganda. And it really pisses me off. And why we haven't pulled their broadcasting license is beyond me. But we need to be pulling that broadcasting license. Enough is enough with ABC. And I think we're going to really try to put together some efforts here on this channel to advocate in pushing, maybe some pressure on the FCC to start ending those requirements with ABC. ABC is not entitled to this. Okay? We did them a favor. And now they're using it to destroy this country with propaganda, and it's got to end. And I don't know how to get that done other than advocating and activating. And that's writing letters, writing emails, and starting to do something to campaign against ABC and start using getting some scrapers, showing what ABC is writing and what the truth really was, and start comparing those and really putting together a legitimate report that can be sent off to prove that they are a propaganda machine that doesn't deserve broadcasting license on our public radio waves or airwaves. Our TVs, this should not be going into every single household if we know that it's full of lies. And they've been warned before, and they still do this shit. Enough is enough. Enough is enough.
To that question, the local police chiefs have said their own off-duty officers, so police officers, are being targeted because they are a person of color and asked to show.
I doubt that highly.
Is that a concern of the administration and the Department of Homeland Security? If local law enforcement says their own officers are being targeted and they describe it as, quote, civil rights violations in our streets.
So I saw one story about this and one local police officer who said this. And look, certainly is it a concern? Absolutely. The first thing we have to figure out is whether it happened or not.
Yep.
And then if it happened, whether there is a good explanation or a bad explanation.
Yep.
And of course, if somebody violated the law, if somebody...
But isn't this the responsibility of media? Why, right? Shouldn't media be reaching out to that? Why are they asking somebody that wasn't there? Why isn't this the media's job? Why is the media asking the VP? Why isn't the media reaching out to that officer and demanding the receipts and pulling the public records and pulling the body camera footage? Jeez. And then we see CNN while we have Nick Shirley, boots on the ground, shoe leather investigation, and you got a CNN reporter making $200,000 a year. Are you a legitimate business? Being lazy on the phone? Not even showing up? It's sickening. I'm so sick of being manipulated by mainstream media. It's irritating. It's irritating as all get out. Why is a media person asking VP? Why have they not already? This stuff happened. Look, we watched that, days ago. They should have already had the body cam footage. They should have already had the person on an interview with a camera in their face having them explain what happened to them. None of that happened. Where is that? Shame on mainstream media. Shame, shame, shame. Shame, 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 shame. That is media's job, not the Vice President of the United States, you dumbasses. Sticky button. I'm gonna have to get a new... I can't stand that. That's the one thing I have is the laughy button. And it just doesn't want to play. Danger zone. What is the media? Why do we even have mainstream media anymore? When they don't even know what their freaking job is. We've got journalists that have went to college that don't even know how to do journalism. This really does just burn my ass.
Racially profiled, if somebody violated the rights of one of our fellow citizens, that is something we will take very seriously. What I also would say is that many of the most viral stories of the past couple of weeks have turned out to be, at best, partially true. So we want to try people based on reality, based on the truth, based on context. We're not going to prejudge people just because of viral social media story that turned out to be half false.
Half false.
Quick question. About the roundtable you just had, I presume that happened. Did you invite anybody with an opposing point of view to get an idea of why people...
The news is fake. That was false and fake and never happened.
So I haven't talked to Governor Walz on this particular trip. A number of members of our administration, I believe our chief of staff, spoke to the governor.
So if you guys didn't hear the question, they wanted to know if he had spoken to Tim Walz about lowering the temperature with him. And so he's basically saying, no, I have not.
He's been in constant contact with his staff over the past week. We've been in my office in constant contact with people here on the ground in Minneapolis. There were certainly people at our roundtable with opposing views. And look, I don't even know, whether it's public, but yes, we met with people with opposing views here at the roundtable. I wanted to get a perspective from everybody, but also, of course, offer my opinion that with a little bit more cooperation, we could lower the chaos. We're going to keep on doing that. If Governor Walz wants to call me, we'll absolutely continue talking. I will say that my sense of this situation, having talked to these guys for a long time, is this is primarily a law enforcement issue. This is the Attorney General. This is the local mayor. This is all of the organs of local and state law enforcement. That's who we focus on, but we've certainly been in communication with the governor and his office as well.
So they have been in communication, but hasn't spoken directly. The lady with the forehead Band-Aid. Oh, yeah. Well, it's like that. It was like that Somali, what was it? Something Leering Center, Quality Leering Center. And he comes out and he says, somebody broke in and stole all of our, enrollment papers and this, that, and the other. It must be that racist white dude, Nick Shirley, right? And that's what they're taught. They're taught to scream racism, because that's why nobody wanted to go after the fraud, because they were so scared of being called a racist. At this point, you can call me whatever you need to call me, honey. Okay? I think everybody on social media has had their opinion of who Bullhorn Betty is and has used their choice of words for me. It's never stopped me for coming here and speaking my truth to all of you. I have been called racist, Islamophobe, homophobe. God, what? You know what? You guys start putting some of the names you've heard me be called. Sweaty Betty, Machete Betty. I mean, we could go on. We even started creating a line of dolls for the Bettys that I've been called, okay? So, I mean, I'm not with the name call. I don't care. I don't care. You know what? I still show up. I still do what I need to do at Manatee County. I still need to do what I need to do in the state of Florida. It hasn't prevented me from doing anything, putting stuff in place, taking people out of office. It hasn't stopped me from running my show on true crime. It hasn't done anything. So why is everybody so scared of being called a freaking racist? Okay? Right now, being called a racist means that you've actually stood up on something. It doesn't matter whether you're white, green, pink with green polka dots. If you've been called a racist, it's because you've had common sense. Okay? I'm sorry, because it's the new way to try to control speech. I don't care, and you shouldn't either. You shouldn't. Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. That's basically what I do. Thank you. That's exactly what everybody needs to do. Okay? It's bullshit. Okay? We're tired of it. At the end of the day, we're tired of it. So, the lady with the scar, they're going to say what they're going to say. They're on their way out of this country. They stole a lot of money. They've been living. You got to remember, these people didn't even know how to use a toilet. Okay? They're from a war-torn area. They're just from a shithole. Okay? They're from a shithole. Let me tell you some of the stories I heard about Minnesota and these Somalis coming over. They would just drop their drawers and shit and piss anywhere. They didn't even know how to use a toilet. Can you imagine being in a food factory and watching some Somali over in the corner while you're processing chicken, dropping his drawers and taking a shit? I just want you guys to know. And how many inspectors went into those facilities to make sure none of that human contaminant got on the food? It's disgusting. Send them back. Send them back. And if you don't believe me, go look it up. There's plenty of receipts out there on Google. And if you can't find them and you need some help, open up your Chat GPT, okay?
Vice President.
Yeah.
local law enforcement obviously hasn't been really helping out with the agents who've been assaulted repeatedly. What's the plan if nothing changes there here locally and this operation has attracted thousands of agents? Are there any plans to go into any other cities from here?
Well, right now we're focused on Minneapolis because that's where we have the highest concentration of people who have violated our immigration laws, and that's also, frankly, where we see the most assault of our law enforcement officers. I mean, our plan is very simple. If you assault a federal law enforcement officer, we're going to do everything that we can to put you in prison. It's very simple. And most of these protesters, as much as I may disagree with their politics, most of them have been peaceful, but a lot of them have not been peaceful. And if you go and storm a church, if you go and assault a federal law enforcement officer, we're going to try very hard. We're going to use every resource of the federal government to put you in prison. Respect people's rights. Respect people's rights
Amen.
to worship. Respect people's rights to do their job without being assaulted. If you follow that basic principle, the Trump administration is going to do everything that we can to protect your rights. But if you go after somebody, if you assault somebody, if you make a 9-year-old girl cry because you walked into her church and harassed her, we're going to go after you with every single tool that we have.
Vice President.
Yeah.
Maggie Vesco with NBC News, sir. Your administration has said repeatedly this is about safety, about making Americans feel safer. So what do you say to people here in Minnesota who say it's the overwhelming presence of ICE officers and federal officers and their tactics that are making them feel less safe?
Well, one thing I would say is, first of all, we saw in 2025 the biggest one-year drop in murders in the history of the United States of America.
Wow.
Significant reductions in violent crime. The reason why we have less violent crime
Wow.
is really two
Let's
reasons.
listen to that
Number one,
again.
because we're enforcing one-year drop in murders in the history.
And their tactics that are making them feel less safe.
Well, one thing I would say is, first of all, we saw in 2025 the biggest
Interesting.
one-year drop in murders in the history of the United States of America. Significant reductions in violent crime. The reason why we have less violent crime is really two reasons. Number one, because we're enforcing the immigration laws and getting very violent criminals out of our country. And number two, because we're enforcing our criminal laws and putting guys who assault and murder behind bars. This is part of a broad effort to make us safe. And the chaos that people are seeing, and I understand there is frustration of the chaos, I'd say that we're doing everything that we can to lower the temperature, and we would like federal and local, or excuse me, state and local officials to meet us halfway. So much, so.
Perceiving it correctly. Are you saying that they're not seeing that
I can't stand mainstream media.
Look, I'm sure that people are seeing a lot of things that would make any member of our national community feel very upset. But I also think that if you understand this in context, this is the inevitable consequence of a state and local government that have decided that they're not going to cooperate with immigration enforcement at all. In fact, they're going to aggressively not cooperate. So here's a basic illustration of this. If you are an ICE officer and you have to arrest a person who's committed assault and is also an illegal alien, but the state and local officials won't help you identify that person, many of the things that people in Minneapolis are seeing that give them pause, that frustrate them, that worry them, that make them feel like things are too chaotic, many of these things are coming from the fact that there's no cooperation with state and local law enforcement. And I guess what I would tell people, again, many of whom are justifiably concerned and worried about what they're seeing in their communities, is why are we not seeing it anywhere else? We're seeing this level of chaos only in Minneapolis. LA and Chicago, we had some problems there. Pretty much every jurisdiction where these guys are operating, you don't see the same level of chaos.
That is a very, and this is where they're going to be able to use this in court to get the mayor and the governor in line, because he's absolutely right. You guys we're seeing that this is going on in Minneapolis, but you guys don't understand that every single one of the 50 states have ICE enforcement already going on in them. We got it going on here in Florida, but you don't see this kind of crap in Florida. Why? Because our sheriffs, our governor won't put up with this. Our mayors won't put up with this. Our sheriff won't put up with this. And why won't they put up with this? Because we, the people in the state of Florida, will not tolerate this. And we do hold our politicians accountable. Okay? There's a lot of people just like me in this state. Okay? And I'm hoping that there's a lot of people like me in your states. And I'm trying to educate each and every one of you to be a Betty in your state. We need you. If you've got time to be here and to help, I want to get you empowered, and I want to educate you to help, because we need help in all 50 states. We don't need help in Florida. We need help in all 50 states. What is it? We need a Betty. Maybe a Betty on maybe some Prozac. Maybe. I don't know. We need a Betty in every state like Betty, but maybe a Betty on Prozac or, I don't know, a downer of some sort. We don't want a drunk Betty. That's an unaccomplished Betty. I know that. I'm just saying.
You don't see the same level of violence. You don't see the problems that we're seeing in Minneapolis. Maybe the problem is unique to Minneapolis, and we believe that it is. And it's a lack of cooperation between state and local law enforcement and federal law enforcement. Sir.
CNN. ICE has been operating here for years with less pushback.
Hold on, we got CNN.
This fake news was indeed fake news. We don't want fake news. You're CNN. You're fake news.
Okay.
You have an agenda.
Than we're seeing right now. And even the St. Paul police chief recently said, is there not a way to find common ground without scaring the hell out of people in the community? Those were his words. And I just wonder, with this Operation Metro Surge, is any part of it meant to send a form of political message to the leaders here in Minneapolis and the state of Minnesota? And I know you talked about you've been in touch with the governor's offices and the mayor's offices, but why have you not been able to speak to them directly? Have they not been willing to do so?
Well, look, I have spoken to some of the people in Minnesota directly. I spoke to some of them today. I've spoke to others in the past. And again, our staff has been in very direct contact with pretty much every official with any influence or any power in Minneapolis. But no, we're not trying to send a political message. We're trying to enforce the law. And unfortunately, what has happened is that as we've enforced the law, there's been this weird reaction, again, unique to this city. This is not a common thing across the United States of America. There's been a very unique, very Minneapolis-specific reaction to our enforcement of federal immigration laws. What I'm trying to do here today is understand why that is. What is it?
Because they were caught with their hands in the cookie jar, and they've been using their residents as pawns to cover up a fraud. Tim Walz, Tampon Tim, deserves the clink clink. Deserves the clink clink. Where is my jail door? Just saying.
About Minneapolis that has become so chaotic? What are the specific types of cooperation that we need? Look, I don't need Tim Walz or Jacob Frey or anybody else to come out and say that they agree with J.D. Vance or Donald Trump on immigration. I just don't need that. What I do need them to do is empower their local officials to help our federal officials out in a way where this can be a little bit less chaotic and it can be a little bit more targeted. Like if we're trying to find a sex offender, tell us where the guy lives. Simple things like that, simple changes in how they're approaching immigration enforcement would make this work a lot better. It would make Minneapolis' streets a lot safer, and it would make this...
Guys, this is some serious talking points here, and you guys keep making me laugh. It's not fair. Not fair. MBA, master of bullhorn attitude. That's cute. That's cute.
This whole thing a lot less traumatic for this community. I'll take one more question.
Mr. Vice President.
Go ahead.
You said that it's time to turn down the temperature. Does that include changes to both ICE and CBP tactics that we've seen employed on the streets, including less than lethal tactics, pepper spray, pepper balls? Beyond that,
No, the answer is no. I'll speak for the Vice President.
And the Minnesota Department of Corrections says that its own officers have been cooperating with ICE all along, handing over criminals once they serve their sentences to ICE officials. And you can see that there is some cooperation with the state.
Yeah, look, if I was going to list the 5 agencies locally and statewide that I'm most worried about, I wouldn't put the Department of Corrections on that list. I think that while there are certain things we'd like to see more from them, they've hardly been the worst offenders. You agree with that, guys? That's a fair assessment. But I think you talked about tactics and you talked about the response to things. Look, we don't want to employ tactics that... We don't employ the kind of tactics that are only necessary when violence is committed against officers. That is these guys' directive, and that's what we're going to try to do. And again, you see, the president said this a couple of days ago. Whenever you have a law enforcement operation, even if 99.99% of the guys do everything perfectly, you're going to have people that make mistakes. That is the nature of law enforcement. What I do think that we can do is, working with state and local officials, we can make the worst moments of chaos much less common. And all they've got to do is meet us halfway.
Exactly.
These guys want to communicate with them. They want to talk to the local business leaders. Many of these guys, many of the people standing behind me are members of the Minneapolis community. Many of the officials that I met today who work in federal immigration enforcement, this is their home. They love this place. These are their neighbors. They want this to work a lot more smoothly. I think that we can get there. We just got to work at it a little bit, and we need some cooperation from state and local officials. The last thing that I'll say is I just hope they give it. This is a beautiful city. I've only been here a few times. I love it. Even in this weather, I love Minneapolis. We could do a lot better. We could do a lot more with more cooperation. The Trump administration, the directive that I got from the President of the United States is meet these guys halfway. Work with them so that we can make these immigration enforcement operations successful without endangering our ICE officers, and so that we can turn down the chaos a little bit at least.
So he wants to meet, the president wants to meet, he gave J.D. Vance a directive to meet them halfway. I know Donald J. Trump enough to know that when he means halfway, he expects the state and local officials to meet him the other half.
I think a lot, actually. But for us to do that, we need some help from the state and local officials. We will keep on working with them, and so long as they're willing to work with us, they will always find a partner in public safety and law enforcement in the Trump administration. Thank you all.
So I think that gets a round of applause. He did a great job. I think VP J.D. Vance, again, you guys know, if you guys don't know my history, I've met J.D. Vance personally. I've had an opportunity to speak to him personally. It was in Ohio. This was before he was, entertained as VP. He was there with Don Jr., and Don Jr. had reached out to some of our leadership. They needed some more bodies at an event that he was co-hosting with J.D. Vance, for a tour. And so we went out there. And one of the problems that we had with J.D. Vance was some of his commentary that he had said about the president. And this is going to come back down to some of the commentary we're now hearing about Byron Donalds, because this is the truth. At the end of the day, when they first came into office, they were considered what is known as freshmen. They're green as all get out, right? They have no idea what they're doing. In all fairness, you don't go to school to become a congressman, okay? You kind of have to have, some stuff, and you've got to go to classes and learn how to do your job. It's just how it works, okay? So these people have never done the job before. They're going to be leaning on other politicians that may have name recognition that's in their class, trying to get their feet wet. And so these other people that were higher up the food chain are basically telling them if they don't fall in line, they're not going to get committee assignments. They're not going to get these things. They're not going to get these things. They're basically going to ruin their 4 years in office, and they must fall in line. And so that's what happened to J.D. Vance, and he kind of went with the flow of everybody else until he realized they were wrong. And then he started making corrections. And I'd have to say, that may have been true with Byron Donalds. I'm supporting Byron Donalds for governor of the state of Florida for a variety of reasons. One, he's one of us. He's a MAGA first supporter. I met him campaigning and doing other things before he was. Well, I guess it was after he was already an elected official and trying to run again in a very, very contentious market. So, either way, a lot can be said for the climate. So don't allow people to put sound bites out without real context and allow it to sway your mind about politicians, because this is going to be a very contentious midterm election. I hope all of you guys get out and start voting. We need every single vote possible. Okay. This could make or break the country. This midterm is so important. So reach out to your families. Let them know you have to vote in 2026. There's no sitting out. And the reason why it's so hard to get people to vote in 2026 is because it's not a presidential election. And when you don't have a presidential election or a major ballot, then most people think it doesn't really matter. And so they never vote on it. They only vote on every 4 years. They never go for the 2-year votes. Guys, if you're here, I need you to vote in 2026. Do not miss this vote. Please do not miss this vote. I'm not telling you how to vote, but I'm asking you to go and vote. Okay? Please go and vote. This is one little sector. Many of you guys know Dan Bongino was part of the FBI. He had stepped down. And so many of you guys probably want to know, what did he do in office? This is going to be a little side note. It's going to be about a minute and a half, and then we're going to roll over to Sebastian Rogers. Yep. Going over time, guys. I'm sorry. I told you it's going to be a long day today. It's going to be a long day. And we still have a show tonight. We're going to be doing a show tonight, a more involved show. So I'll set that up after this. Immediately after this, I'll be taking Delilah out. And then we'll set up the show. Or excuse me, I'll set up the show. Then we'll take Delilah out. And then you guys can. So after we end this show, please go over to the channel and sign up for this evening's show. So here's a little bit that I think it interested in me. So I figured it's just a minute and a half. If it's interesting information for you, maybe you guys can get something out of it. I did.
And trained to focus on all the wrong things. Then you had the other guys, you know, the door kickers, the guys who were out there breaking up violent gangs, chasing terrorists. The thing was find the refocus from what they were doing. I say when I get in there were 2 FBIs, Sean. There was one that had been fully weaponized and trained to focus on all the wrong things. Then you had the other guys, you know, the door kickers, the guys who were out there breaking up violent gangs, chasing terrorists. The thing was finding who was part of what group. So, you know, we had to find, investigate, and then take action on a lot of this. That wasn't easy. I mean, no one comes forward and admits, you know, hey, I was part of the weaponized prior regime. But once we got everything refocused and we had the president's directive to go forth and just get these bad guys off the street, you know, it was go time. And when you combine that with this focus on securing the border, it shouldn't be a surprise to the American people that the violent crime rate just fell to. I saw the murder rate is the lowest it's been since 1900. You know, it's unprecedented. I mean, by definition, there's no modern precedent for that. And we did this. It was not complicated, Sean. Cash and I figured out very early on broken windows policing. If it could work in New York City with Rudy Giuliani, it could work nationally. Long story short, about 70 to 80% of violent street crime is committed by 0.5% of the population. You go and get these dirtbags and these mutts off the street, these pieces of garbage. You use UFAP warrants, Vickers, RICO crime, gang statutes, any federal statute we could dig up. Trust me, we used it. We were very creative with how we use this stuff. We got those agents out there rolling, and they were more than happy to go do it. When they picked these guys off the street, you know what? A lot of you don't know murderers out there. You don't, because there's not that many. So when you pick them off the street, that's what happened.
So there you guys have it. They identified the bad agents in their department in throughout the FBI. That was the biggest task that they had. They ultimately had to go and fire those people. And then they went out after they got everything cleaned up. They went out and started working. And guess what? They got violent offenders off the streets, and guess what it did? The murder rate just dropped. It was like a straight decline to the bottom. Our murder rate is the lowest it has been since the 1900s, folks. That is huge. It's huge. So again, I thought you guys would be interested in that because I was absolutely interested in that. So thanks to Dan Bongino. Just thanks to everybody. You know, these people are doing things that nobody really wants to do, and they're saving lives. At the end of the day, having the lowest murder rate in our history, or at least since in the 21st century, you know what I'm saying? Or the 22nd century? We're in the 21st century. We're still in the 21st, 2021. Yeah, we're 21st century. Okay. At the end of the day, this is great. This is progress. This is making all of our communities safer. And then we have the efforts to remove these horrible people and kick them out of the country. It's amazing what the FBI is doing. It's amazing what the Homeland Security is doing. We are going to have a safe country, probably the safest country we've ever known. Think about it. We have been forced to deal with Washington, D.C. being a shithole. Very dangerous. When I went there, you know, we had chaperones and everything, and they kept all of us kids very much corralled. They kept all of us kids very much protected in that city because it was crazy then when we went there as the school. And so now that we're seeing it, I would love to go to Washington, D.C., which I will be in D.C. on July 4th, in the beginning of July. I will be in D.C., and I can't wait to see something I've never seen. I've been to D.C. multiple times. I'm very interested to see how safe D.C. is in this lifetime. I will finally see a murder-free area of Washington, D.C., which I've never been able to see in 46 years of being on this planet. So anyways, guys, I do appreciate you guys allowing me to inform you guys on some political and worldly news. I thought the information about Greenland, the information about Minnesota, we all needed to hear it. We needed to be informed. I'm sick of mainstream media. And so the information you're getting on mainstream media is not accurate. And so I feel it is my duty to make sure that you are up to date with the most relevant and truthful, non-propaganda information as possible. Now, am I biased? Of course I am. I'm a front row Joe. I love President Trump, and I love this administration. I don't agree 100% with everything with Trump administration, but one thing is I absolutely am a Trump loyalist. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. So now we're going to shift gears and stay focused because this case matters. Sebastian Rogers. Before we talk about warrants, rumors, or statements, we need to remind people of the history of this case. Sebastian Waindrake Rogers disappeared on February 25th, 2024. We're no longer saying February 26th because he was reported missing on February 26th. However, it is my belief, based on multiple statements by Christopher Proudfoot, that this child went missing on Sunday, not Monday. On Sunday, his day was filled with quite a lot of activity. He's a highly functioning autistic boy, and I did not understand when we first started this case what a high function autistic child could do, what the range of his abilities were, but I learned very early on this thing called overstimulation. And it's basically when a autistic child has more activity than they can handle, and it causes them to amp up. So a lot of people were very concerned about Sunday being too overly active for him. By the end of the day, where we start seeing him, or the proof of life, so to speak, he was it appeared he wasn't happy. It appeared that he was, now that we understand what overstimulation looks like or what it could be, we kind of believe that he could have been overstimulated. We learned from his father that him having his hands in his pocket are not really the best sign when it comes to his son. So it did appear that there were some elevated or frustration going on between them when they got to the Texas Roadhouse. Katie kind of just tosses this menu at him. They didn't really talk. Katie's kind of looking really weird, all around the restaurant and, taking pictures with her phone, clink, clink, secret pictures of Sebastian with her phone. There's a green shirt hoodie person that's outside of the restaurant that was sitting by her car for several minutes. And then you have the ride home where nobody knows what happened. We saw Sebastian get into the car. We hear he made it home and he went inside the home. But when he got inside that car, that's the last that we, the people, the public, the average Joes, ever saw Sebastian again. And according to his mother, after that moment, they went home. He took the garbage out and then around 9 o'clock went to bed. Around 9:43, according to Christopher Proudfoot, Katie calls him and they stay on the phone for something like 2 to 3 hours. Very weird behavior. She acknowledges hearing a thud or a thump around 10 p.m. However, the story from Chris and Katie themselves is that she was falling asleep on the couch. So what we have derived out of this story is that Katie was the only person that was alone with Sebastian at the time of his disappearance, and that's going to be critical because Sebastian is a missing child. And the facts alone should override egos, narrative, and online drama. The case has always been surrounded by confusion, conflict, conflicting timelines, and questionable behavior, especially in the earlier days. And that brings us to the search warrant issue. As many of you guys know, Justin For All had brought up a search warrant issue related to Sebastian Rogers' case and Katie and Chris Proudfoot. And we were told for a really long time, we did acknowledge that there was this criminal warrant that was served on the Proudfoot property. I believe it was April 2nd. But because my court hearing was coming up, they were able to blame that on being served service of process for my court hearing versus it being a warrant for their electronic devices. So let's be very precise here. There has been a long-standing rumor that Chris and Katie Proudfoot had warrants issued for their phone, computer, and or other electronic devices. At the time, the situation was presented, at least publicly, as though it was some type of routine court service. But that story did not align with later statements. So according to Nerdy Attic, which did speak to Christopher Proudfoot and was trying to work on learning about Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers or where he may be, Christopher acknowledged to him directly that a search warrant for their phones was done. And when we look back, it was at that same time that they lied to us and said it was for normal service of process. That is a material difference. And the service of court paperwork is not the same as a law enforcement executing a warrant for electronics. And words matter, especially in criminal investigations. So today we're going to look back. We're going to re-examine some things from that time period, and we're also going to listen carefully to what was said and what was not said. When we watch these clips, with the benefit of hindsight, certain things will stand out. Tone, body language, deflection, things that didn't seem important then suddenly deserve scrutiny now. That doesn't mean guilt. It means awareness. In missing children cases, electronics are critical. Phones hold location data, steps, and other information about movement and other people's behavior, including possible websites that they have searched or other type of apps that they may have used, right? Computers hold communication. Cloud accounts hold histories people forget even exist. So the question is not why law enforcement would seek a warrant. The question is why the narrative around it was muddied. And why even now clarity seems to be avoided. We are not here to accuse. I think Chris and Katie Proudfoot did something to their son. We're here to document because Sebastian deserves the truth and not spin. And like I said, we're going to be going back to some of the videos that we have related to Sebastian Rogers. But before we do, this is something that I was unfamiliar with. So apparently there was an article out just within the last week talking about some of the states missing children, National Amber Alert Awareness Day on January 13th. And of course, in this article about the National Amber Alert Awareness Day highlights ongoing efforts to find a missing child in Tennessee. We read that there are several missing children. Now, I want to tell you guys, we have more active missing child cases in the state of Tennessee than we do here in the state of Florida. They have a lot of work to do in their state, and each and every politician I hear in that state is avoiding the elephant in the room. They're talking about land, they're talking about farmland, but they're not talking about the health and the well-being of their children. They're not talking about the protection of their children. They are making laws that are already outdated because they were so far outdated to begin with that they're now trying to use a step tactic when they need to use a catapult tactic. To align their laws with current laws around this country. In my opinion, the state of Tennessee, as well as most states around the United States of America, are failing our children. They're failing our children in the most worst ways. These children are being assaulted. These children are being abused, sometimes sexually. They're going into abusive environments. They're taking them out of one abusive environment and putting them into another abusive environment. They have no beds for the children that need to be removed from homes, so they keep the children in the homes that are causing these children the most fear and peril. It's sad. So we've learned that there are several children here that they're talking about. And as of now, they have 6 active Amber Alerts in the state of Tennessee. And one, the very top one, is Sebastian Rogers. And he is the most recent. But we have Zaylee Grace Fryer. She's been missing from Millersville since 2011. Gage Daniel, 2012. Chloe, 2012. Summer Wells, 2021, Kennedy Hoyle, 2022, and Sebastian Rogers, 2024. So if you have any information on any of those, please reach out to 1-800-TBI-FIND. But when I went back and looked at what was going on, I came across this video here. Now, this video here is pretty interesting because I thought when I was looking at this was from 2025. And it wasn't. It was from 2024. It is from April 2024. So this was almost a year before this warrant was executed on their property for the phones. And I thought it was interesting, and I wasn't going to play it because, in all fairness, it said, "Why, Chris, why?" And then I thought, you know what? Let's see what it has. So I pulled it up. I didn't have a whole lot of time to go through here and listen to it, but I could tell just on my cursory review that we are discussing when Naked Diver got to that property and was talking to him about the water hole. Now, this is interesting what is said about the water hole, and it's always bothered me for a few reasons. One, obviously, dogs were following a disturbance of some sort from the Proudfoot home to the pond. What was it? I really don't know. Is it a false positive? I really don't know. All I can tell you is that Chris knew a lot about that water hole. about the height, the depth. There's just something about how he says it that has never really sat right with me, because he talks about the water coming up to his knees. And I'm thinking, how the heck would anybody know that unless they've been in that water before? And then we go back to, obviously dogs were following some type of scent. I don't know what he did in that pond or retaining pond or whatever, if anything did happen in the retaining pond. But for some reason, I feel like it was Chris, because Chris has so much information about this pond. But again, I don't know. So let's listen to what we have. How far is this when we start getting into the... So where am I? I'm at 8. So let me see where I start getting into the thing for... Okay, so I don't think we need to... I think I'll be right here. It's possible that all of that was staged. It is possible. And that could have been the reason why they were so adamant that it was a false positive hit. So if you guys are wondering, you guys see the quality of the image behind me now, and you see the beautiful quality of image that you see before you, right? Hi. This is why I do not pay for StreamYard anymore, because look at the quality I get without StreamYard. You've got blurry and you've got crystal clear. See the difference? If you guys are wondering why we're buying equipment, look at the quality of image and look at the quality of image. Who would like the way we're doing things now? Raise your hand or put a 1 in the chat. If you like the way we used to do things, put a 2 in the chat. I would like to gauge you before we get on with our story. I'll wait 20 seconds. He led them on a wild goose chase to distract and deflect them. I agree. Yeah, and when you put me up on a big screen, good gracious, it's blurry as crap. I'm like, gosh, I didn't like that. You have no idea how many cameras I went through. I went through a lot of stinking melodies. I like how he... Oh, Mel. I feel like that was a fat finger issue, or you just wanted me to laugh. Sorry. Maybe you did like the blurriness. Oh, Brent. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it, Tay-Tay. Oh, thank you, Tay-Tay. I appreciate it. Your face. I know. Yeah, I know. I stopped myself at that perfect moment like I did Tim Walls. All right, we'll get on with it. But I'm not going to go into that just right yet. That's going to be later down in the show of here. So the Narcotic Diver. Here we go. Where I believe everybody has missed the boat is, well, thank you, Rusty, 5 months member. She loves each of you. Hugs and kisses. Sorry, I have been working nonstop for the last several days. So just FYI. So long story short is Chris took a ride with law enforcement. Ooh, and this, I forgot about that, was the literally breaking news that everybody missed. They missed the stinking mark. Ooh, I forgot about that. OMG, folks. We forgot about the ride-along. Law enforcement thought they must have questioned Chris's story. They wouldn't have put him on a ride-along. I forgot about that. They would have never put him on a ride-along if they believed that he was not around. They would have taken Katie on the ride-along. That's just my opinion, folks. That's my opinion. We have to look. I keep forgetting about that. You know? Like, when all this stuff was going on, he was telling Narcotic Diver. See, there was 2 things that I missed. I don't know if I remember. Well, hey, Deja Vu. It's nice to see you, love. Welcome to our channel. Is that, were you saying Deja Vu? Sorry, I thought you were talking to somebody. Maybe there's not anybody in here. Oh, that's what I was thinking. Anyways. So there were 2 things that were heard from Chris from Narca Diver, and one was the ride along, and the other one was the water up to his knees. The ride along sign off on supervisor on duty. It was just weird, but I do believe that I forgot about that, and that is critical, folks. Think about that. We've heard about ride-alongs before, and usually they're not expecting for a whole lot of information. They're just looking at somebody to see if they're getting a little antsy when they go to a place, or if they're calm, cool, and collective as a cucumber. They're having an opportunity because these are trained investigators. That means they're trained in body language. They're trained in deception. They're trained in they're trained to hear cues and red flags. And they're trained to capitalize on those cues and red flags. So you're talking about investigators putting Christopher Proudfoot in a private vehicle and taking him for a ride-along to different areas related to the case. I don't see them doing that for any other purpose than to get a pulse on who Christopher Proudfoot is. That is really the only time I've ever seen that particular tactic used. Focusing on obsolete shit that's already been explained over and over again, in my opinion. Not to offend anybody, but I'm just a blunt person, okay? Chris got into a car with a patrolman. Hey, Jenny. And went around and drove from site to site. It's nice to see you. With law enforcement. He was the only one in that entire family that was taken for this ride-along. We've been doing this for a really, really long time. Not as long as many, longer than most, but we've been around the block a time or two because this is our business. When have we ever known anybody to get in the car with a cop to go around to these locations? We know what that's all about. You guys remember the last time we had a ride-along? You guys remember? It was just recently, too. It was in the Audrey Cunningham case. Mm-hmm. And the ride-along was Stephen McDougal. Remember that? So Chris thinks this is a bragging right. He knows more than anybody else in the family because he got this ride from law enforcement. And we touched on it earlier at the 3 o'clock one with the pre-record, the premiere. I want you guys to hear this. This is ultra concerning to me. This tells me that law enforcement have put their sights on that man and that man alone. Let's listen. Here we go. And I've got it just about where I got it back. We're going to be right about the 2:50 mark. So we're going to have 1 minute of, the update, because the 1 minute is all the crap that didn't matter. And the one spot in here that really, really, really did matter, nobody even picked up on. So let's listen. Yep. It's hard to hear, so you guys are gonna, I'll try to, here we go.
Do you know how much they actually drained?
They drained the whole thing.
It's okay.
So initially, when they went over to look at it,
Turn your volumes up.
From the picture that you showed me, there's a lot of new runoff.
Yeah, that's what.
From where they're cut. Yeah.
Trying to figure out. I was like, I don't know how shallow it was before or after.
Yeah. I'm 5'9", and it was deep.
Okay.
So, and they even drained it and still walked it.
Okay, so they actually walked it. I didn't know that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I'm going to try to turn my mic volume down just a little bit because I know you guys are probably turning your volumes up. I'm going to try to speak a little lower so I'm not going to kill your eardrums. You're going to have to turn your volume up quite a lot. But I'll try to not get too excited or not scream in your ears while I'm just going to let this roll until we're done. There's going to be 2 spots I may stop. But I'll stop it because I've got to turn my microphone back on, and that will be, and I'll remember not to turn it on all the way so I don't blow your eardrums out. So just bear with it. But I know you guys are going to have to turn your volumes up in order to hear what's being said here. So go ahead and turn them up.
That is actually information that was told to me by law enforcement.
Okay, it's coming up right now.
I went on being a law enforcement thing, it's going to be in a vehicle, right? Drove it around, showed me a bunch of stuff.
All right, guys. So if you guys still have loud volumes, I'm going to try to keep it as low as possible so I don't blow your eardrums. So there he just said that that the cops came up, picked him up, and drove him to several different places. That is not typical in an investigation for a stepfather or a father or a mother, for that matter. It's typically when they need to gauge you. Okay, so they thought Chris is involved. In my opinion, this tells me that the FBI thought he may be involved in the disappearance of his stepson. Law enforcement put me in a vehicle and drove me around and showed me a bunch of stuff. I'm going to take this back. We're going to listen to it again because he says something past that.
So they actually,
sorry.
I went on being a law enforcement thing, it's going to be in a vehicle, right? Drove it around, showed me a bunch of stuff. I'm the only one that they've done that. Okay. So I can actually give you a little bit more information than what
you see how he's bragging about. Now would be the time to turn your volumes down, okay? Because it's killing my ears, okay? So I can only imagine. I'm punishing you guys. I don't know why, but I'm punishing myself. I'm right there with you. Just remember that. I'm right there with you. But now I'm about to start talking. So turn your volumes down. It's blowing my eardrums out. I will try to get a better copy of this video and get all the noise out of it so we can enhance the volume so we don't have to jack up the freaking volume on here. I promise you I'll figure it out. He thinks it's a bragging right that he was put into this law enforcement cruiser and taken around and shown areas, and he was the only one that did. Not the mother, not the father, just Chris. The one person that was the furthest away from Sebastian. Does that sound normal to you? Does that sound right to you? No, it doesn't. You know why? Because that is law enforcement behavior. And that is telling me they're looking squarely at Chris Proudfoot. Okay, turn the volume back down. All right, now you guys got to turn the volume back down. Okay. This was before, if you guys remember, I really thought it was Chris Proudfoot that did this. At this time, this was again April 2024. This wasn't even a full 2 months, a full 60 days after Sebastian disappeared. Okay, so I thought Chris was responsible for the whole thing. Okay, it wasn't until after this. I don't know when, and I don't know if my mods would remember when. If they do, they can throw it in the chat. But I don't remember specifically when I changed my theory and realized Katie was the only one alone with Sebastian that most likely could have hurt him, and that Chris would have been more of an accessory after the fact in helping clean up any type of evidence or, you know, about their fight, about whatever else may have happened inside that home. So obviously we're not the only ones that thought this, okay? And when we heard that Christopher Proudfoot went with law enforcement and not Katie Proudfoot, that was our indicator that law enforcement believes that Christopher Proudfoot's somehow involved, okay? So this is telling me, I know I've been very hard on law enforcement in this entire case, and I'm going to continue to give Sumner County hell because they're not doing enough. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters, okay? I don't care where their heart is. I don't care what their intent is. They're not producing results. They're not getting any closer to the truth. And we've got to stand up and fight and say, you know what, your heart can be in it, but it doesn't matter. The results are what we're looking for, not the heart. Okay? And so we're not getting that from them. We're not getting additional ground searches. It's been 2 years. They've had this 1 week of ground searches and they've cut off all ground searches. The sheriff right there, I think he's truly intentionally and willfully hindering the prosecution of this, or he's going to say that it had something to do with the $200 million loss that they had and why they can't. And if they try to put this back on our shoulders, we're not going to accept that because he's went before the county commission and asked for raises for his people and asked to have his office redone. Now, he could have taken that money and put it toward more resources to find Sebastian, but he failed to do that because he's just not good at what he does. He's a very selfish and a self-serving sheriff. And the community needs to learn that because they're living in a vacuum. Their local mainstream media is lying to their face. They're not covering this case. They're not telling the people this child is still missing. They're trying to get everybody to forget about it because it was so contentious and so hostile that they don't know what to do. That's not my problem. That shows unprofessionalism. It shows incompetence, and it shows a whole host of other problems. But one thing I can say is that the FBI was looking squarely at the parents. How do I know? Because this is not a normal, let's go take a ride. Okay? They're not going to do that unless there's a reason why they do everything that they do. Everything law enforcement does is strategic. You bet your bottom butt on that. Starbright, isn't Dog the Bounty Hunter putting a reward out or no? Yes, there's a large reward that At Night and Dog have put out to bring answers for Sebastian. They've even extended that reward to now cover Summer Wells, any information in that. Because it's not really, I mean, it's producing some information in Sebastian, but at the end of the day, we need to bring a child home. Somebody needs to collect that money. Somebody knows something. And it to me, the people in the Proudfoot family, if I was law enforcement, I'd be focusing on the offspring of these family members, because they're the ones that are overhearing things that parents don't know they're overhearing, and they will be a great source of information. And I hate to break it to everybody, these younger youths, they're easier to rattle their tree, okay? It's easier to apply pressure to a 15 or a 17-year-old or even an 18, 19-year-old than it is somebody like Christopher Proudfoot, okay? So my suggestion would always be the outer circle and the younger youth, because they're listening to all these family conversations that nobody thinks they're listening to, or overhearing stuff because they're down getting a drink of water right in the middle of a conversation, you know? So, or they pick up the house phone while somebody's on the phone talking about something. So again, there's reasons and there's strategy behind everything. Because of that one action, them putting him in the back of the car. We've seen this 1,000 times from Sunday. Who do they put in the back of those cars and drive around for information? You be the answer to that. I'm not going to answer that question for you. It's answered for me because I know how this stuff works. And he was the only one, not the mom that was with Sebastian, not the biological father, just the stepfather. Another thing that just doesn't make sense to me. But what it does tell me is it tells me law enforcement is doing their job. It's telling me law enforcement has a hell of a lot more information than we even know. It tells me law enforcement has their theories and their own speculation. All right, guys. Now you can turn your volume down. All right, guys, turn your volume down. Don't say I never gave you guys anything. So after this, then comes this, right? Then comes this. And what is this? This right here is what happened around, this was the next video I could find around the time that they said that Sebastian, or that this warrant was issued. So I went back into our database to find out what we were talking about. I haven't watched this, okay? I'm bringing this special to each and every one of you. I have no opinion on it. Once I start hearing it, I'll know exactly what it's about. This was obviously a bedhead Betty day. I can tell just by the way I'm dressed. So, you got to understand, when we were working this case with Sebastian Rogers, we were working in this case around the clock for almost a solid year. Over a year. And I would have stopped and slowed up after a year, but Katie and Chris Proudfoot wanted to lie under oath and have me arrested, so I wasn't leaving this case until this case was leaving me. And it's still going on to this day, but it doesn't really matter. We're going to be out in this community from February 23rd to February 27th, raising our voices for Sebastian. We're letting the community know we've gone nowhere. We're letting the community know that a child is still missing, since their shitty mainstream media out there fails to keep reminding people that there's a child missing in their community. So we're going to do mainstream media's job. I will transport myself from Florida to Tennessee to do Nashville and Sumner County's journalist job. And I will also be using my activism and advocacy. Clearly, the judges and the sheriffs and deputies don't understand that I'm allowed to do whatever the hell I want to do. I don't have to say I'm a journalist or an activist or an advocate, because it's all protected under the First Amendment, right? And it's all protected under their Constitution as well. So we're going to hopefully tell law enforcement, don't put your grubby hands on me. I don't break the law. But as you can see, if you do put your hands on me, I'm perfectly capable of dancing with a county. So let's not do a 2.0. Because 2.0, you're going to get a much worse Betty than you've ever seen before. And it's supported and backed up by other statements. Oh, so let's go back. No, I know what it is. Here we go. I remember what I was doing. Normally he will like, so she went into his room. Let's go. People not keep their freaking story straight. Either way, I digress. We're going to do this line by line. We're doing it line by line. Line by line, bitches. So here we go. Beautiful smile. Beautiful smile. I won't be able to to read chat tonight because I'm on one screen and I'm going to be bouncing around from screen to screen because we're fact-finding the crap out of this news article. Oh, come on, and it's supported and backed up by other statements. So let's go over that. Katie Proudfoot recalls the evening of Sunday, February 25th, 2024, as a typical one at home in Hendersonville, Tennessee. Her 15-year-old son, Sebastian, got ready for bed around 9 p.m. Oh, good gracious. Oh, good gracious. I wonder if it'll be what's going on out there in that, what is it, the Kentucky area? You know, that the sheriff that shot the judge, Mickey something, he shot the judge. right? Because why? They were throwing the ladies in jail and then making them pay it off, like, Just saying, kind of had something like this. Steins, that's it. Be careful. Be careful. He don't want none, okay? You don't want none. I'm just going to tell you. He's a little scrawny guy. I might be short, but I can take on scrawny guys. I used to have a freaking 10-foot tall, bulletproof dude that liked to throw me around like a basketball. One shot to the nuts, you find out how quickly they fall. Just saying. I'm not a violent person, but I do protect myself.
To his mom and his 2 dogs, then headed to his bedroom for the night. Katie remembers a noise coming from Sebastian's room around 10 p.m. I hollered out to him.
Okay. Around 10 p.m. Can somebody in chat, I don't care what kind of garbage you throw at me, I just want to know. I want somebody in chat to tell me, hi, Amelia, I hope you're doing well. You have to look at Sun Prairie West High School in Wisconsin. What's going on down there with criminal administrator crimes against children? What the flip? Hold on. Sun Prairie West High School. Wisconsin? Yeah, we'll look it up in just a second. Once we're done with, that's why I wrote it down. Once we're done with Sebastian's case, we'll look it up. So I want somebody to explain to me, and I don't care what stuff you guys throw out here in the chat, but I want to know how you can be falling asleep. Just answer this question. Find me a resolution to this. You're on a phone call. You're falling asleep on the couch, yet you heard a thud and screamed out without the person on the other end of the phone hearing you. Explain that to me. How is that? How could those things work together? I'm leaving it to you. I'm going to shut up and let the audience in the chat tell me what they think this is. Yeah, he's a little thing. But the very I know. I'm kind of thinking the same thing. No, it's Sun Prairie West High. Oh, not high school. Okay, high. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Nah. There was no phone call. No, there's a phone call. I believe that they were on the phone for 3 hours or two hours or something like that, for an extended period of time. I do kind of believe that, because I don't think that he would have brought that up. He wanted to make it crystal clear, which means to tell me he's trying to get in front of something. Don't forget studying also. Yeah, I know. Doing a bunch of stuff, talking, studying, falling asleep, and hearing a thud and screaming out all at the same time. But Christopher Proudfoot has never acknowledged or supported or acknowledged that he heard her and say, well, I heard her saying it. Maybe it wasn't exactly at 10, but it was a few minutes before 10, right? None of that story related to the phone call ever made sense. But I'm just trying to find out if there is anything. There was a phone call. Yeah. If there's any way that we could get those, because it's Occam's razor, right? So we're trying to find an answer without having to assume anything. And those things to me seem to conflict somehow. You know what I'm saying? Like it just seems to me that they don't bode together. For example, I could see Katie speaking to her husband, but I can't see her speaking to her husband and falling asleep within 17 minutes. So it just doesn't matter. It just doesn't make sense, because if she was falling asleep literally within 17 minutes after being on the phone with him, then why did he stay on the phone with her for another hour and a half after that? To listen to her snore? You know, it to me just it's always been an off statement. Like the whole, you know what I would like? I would like if you could. Okay, I'd like this. If you could, if my audience could, if they could try to problem solve that. I want you to think deep. I want you to take your bias away. And I want you to take these facts as true. That yes, she was. Not that they're untrue, that they are true. And I want you to plug them in and figure, oh, you know what? Let's do this right now. Let's go to ChatGPT and just see what they have to. Why not? Okay, let's just type this in the screen. Can you guys see the screen? Oh, you guys can't see the screen. Okay, well that's fine. So I'll read it to you. I've got it on a different, apparently a different one than that's up. So, is it possible for someone to call someone, be studying and falling asleep within 17 minutes after making the call? Would it be realistic for someone to stay on the phone for another hour and a half while they slept? Oh, and by the way, she also heard an alleged thud around 10 when she had fallen asleep. This doesn't make sense. Feel it is a lie. Can we apply Occam's razor? Let's see what it says. Yes, this scenario can be evaluated using Occam's razor. And when you do, the version is described as intentionally inconsistent and implausible without additional corroborating facts. Let's break it down clinically and behaviorally. Okay, let's see what we got here. So falling asleep within 17 minutes while studying. Is this possible? Yeah, but only under specific conditions. Extreme sleep deprivation, illness, intoxication, or sedating medication. Passive studying, i.e. reading in bed, lights low. Well, we know that's not true. Mute while talking. I don't know what that meant. I'm sorry, Lisa. What do you mean? I might be coming into the middle of a conversation. Sedation, yes. And it's kind of funny that word comes up. But let's keep reading. It says, is it typical? And the answer is no. Actively studying, especially with cognitive engagement, generally increases arousal. She must have been. I don't believe the story that she was falling asleep. We'll get to that. Hold on. Let's not get ahead of ourselves just yet. It says, is this typical? And it says, no. Actively studying, especially with cognitive engagement, generally increases arousal, not sleep onset. A 17-minute sleep latency while genuinely studying is atypical unless the person was already near sleep collapse. So that means they had to have been you guys have, some of the, like the students that sit in the library and just study for hours and hours and hours on end. They end up falling, like collapsing in their book, right? That was never described as being the circumstances that evening. So let's keep going. Remaining on the phone for 90 minutes while asleep, technically possible, but behaviorally unlikely. So here are the key issues. Phones usually disconnect due to battery drain, network timeouts. Ooh, I never even thought about that. Or movement noise triggering a response. So it sounds like something that we may look into that I didn't look into before this because we just kind of willy-nilly put this up on the screen. It sounds to me like we might want to look, if somebody's not talking on the phone, would the phone pick that up? That nobody's making a noise and automatically shut itself off? I don't know. I've never thought about that before, but it's saying here, this is what it says. I'll read it verbatim. Phones usually disconnect due to 1, battery drain, 2, network timeouts, or 3, movement/noise triggering a response. Then they say many people subconsciously hang up when they drift off. A sleeping person maintaining a live call for 90 minutes requires no movement, no drop call, no vocalization, no intervention by other party. So they're saying the probability, statistically, it's rare. Practically, it says suspicious. I'm not lying. It says suspicious. Can I put this on the other? Let's see if I can put this on the other one. Here we go. There you go. Suspicious. Right here. Right there. Up. Sorry about that. Maybe I shouldn't hit it because I'm down in here. Okay, so here, right there. Statistically rare, practically suspicious. Okay, you guys see that, right? You guys see that. Okay, I just wanted to make sure you guys saw that. Oh, you guys don't want to see that ugly mug. Let's go back to the other one. There we go. There we go. We'll get back to that one. We'll get back. That's the next one. Okay, so now let's read what else we've got. Let's go to number 3. So number 3, hearing thud at 10 p.m. while asleep. This is the most problematic claim. If she fell asleep 17 minutes after the call, remained asleep during most of the 90-minute call, then her awareness of distinct external sounds like a thud requires either 1, partial awakening, subconscious perception, or memory formation. Yet she simultaneously claims continued sleep. That creates a cognitive contradiction. Ooh. So it's saying that creates a cognitive contradiction. You cannot be fully asleep, aware of time. Ooh. That's a great point. How would she have known the time of the thud? How would she have known the time of the thud? She's not paying attention to the clock. They bring up a valid point here. I never thought about that. So, wow. Okay, so let's do this again. That creates a cognitive contradiction. You cannot be fully asleep, unaware of time, yet selectively conscious enough to register and later recall a specific sound. Unless, it has an unless, she briefly woke up, which contradicts slept through the call, which she said she practically slept through the call until about midnight when he awoke her and told her to go to bed. The sound was imagined, like a hallucination, or the timeline is reconstructed after the fact, which we know the timeline has been reconstructed after the fact. So 4, timeline compression narrative convenience. When people fabricate or adjust narratives, common red flags include compressed timelines, I fell asleep almost immediately, passive state, sleeping, studying, distracted, plausible deniability anchors. Plausible deniability anchors. I was asleep. I don't know. And that's pretty much what she's basically saying about her son's disappearance, right? He was there when I was awake. He was gone when I was asleep, right? Selective awareness. Remembering only what is convenient. This narrative contains all 4. Whoa! So they're saying that literally contains all 4. The compressed timelines, passive states, plausible deniability anchors, and selective awareness. Applying Occam's razor. Occam's razor favors the explanation that requires fewest assumptions. So explanation 1, their claim requires rapid sleep onset during studying, sustained phone connection for 90 minutes, selective auditory awareness during sleep, accurate time recall despite sleep, and no call interruption. That is what explanation A is requiring of us to believe that story. Explanation B, the alternative theory, could be the timeline is inaccurate or intentionally misrepresented. Interesting. The person was awake longer than claimed. The call duration or sleep claim is exaggerated or false. The thud was either heard while awake or added later. Explanation B requires fewer assumptions, is the statement made. So in conclusion, yes, Occam's razor strongly supports that this account is unreliable. This does not automatically prove malicious intent, but it does indicate either faulty memory reconstruction or deliberate narrative shaping. At minimum, the story does not hold up under basic behavioral and cognitive scrutiny. So it says, if you want, I can construct a more realistic timeline, identify which elements are most likely false. Ooh, let's do that one. Which elements are likely false? That's what I want to know. And compare the narrative to known deception indicators used for forensic interviews. And compare. I want that one too. I don't really care about reconstructing a more realistic timeline because people watch this and I don't want to give them any help. Okay, let's see what it says. Below is a forensic style analysis grounded in behavioral science and interview methodology, not conjecture. I will first identify which elements are most likely false or distorted, then map the narrative to establish deception indicators used in forensic interviews like Reed, Peace, and cognitive load models. So elements most likely false or distorted ranked. 1. I fell asleep about 17 minutes after the call while studying. High probability of falsity or distortion. Why? Studying is a cognitively active behavior, not a sleep-induced one. Precise time estimates during sleep onset are unreliable unless a clock was consciously checked and the person was awake longer than they claimed. People who lie often shorten sleep onset timelines to minimize perceived opportunity. Likely reality, she was awake longer than stated or not studying at all. So, number 2, I stayed on the phone for an hour and a half while asleep. Moderately to high probability of falsity or exaggeration. Why? Long uninterrupted calls with a sleeping participant are uncommon. Call continuity requires multiple coincidental factors to align. The claim function is an alibi by technology, a known deception tactic. So likely reality is either a call ended earlier, which I don't believe. She was intermittently awake, which I believe she was fully awake. And the duration is misremembered or overstated. So they were a little calmer on that one. So I heard a thud around 10 p.m. after I fell asleep. Very high probability of falsity or post-event reconstruction. Why? Memory formation requires conscious awareness. Being asleep and later recalling a discrete sound is contradictory unless she woke up. The sound is vague, a thud, unsourced, no cause, location, or follow-up. So likely reality is the sound was heard while awake, or it was retroactively added to align with known events. This is the weakest and most suspicious element. Wow. I'm glad I plugged it into ChatGPT. So it says 4, I don't know anything because I was asleep. Conceptually unreliable, though not provable false. Why? Blanket unconsciousness claims are commonly used to avoid accountability. The statement conflicts with sensitive recall, the thud. So likely reality is she knows more than stated, but was limiting disclosure. That's what we all think, right? We all think that she knows more, but she's just not saying it. So section 2 is comparison to known forensic deception indicators. Below are established indicators used by trained interviewers, not gut feelings. Temporal compression. Now, we hear the deception detective. I think he's the most notable. We're very friendly, very supportive of the deception detective here on this channel. And so hearing this temporal compression, we've heard of temporal factors that he has on his deck. I got his deck of cards right here. Let me see if I can find out what his card actually says. So give me just a second. I wasn't expecting to do this, otherwise I would have went ahead and got it already, and I didn't. But sometimes we move. We don't have really any script for this show, and so it gives us the ability to move around a little bit. And so I know because I remember I read the card and I'm like, what is temporal? I didn't even know what the word was. I forgot it. I'm not smarter than a 5th grader, okay? I'm sorry. Oops. At least I thought he had it. Maybe I could be wrong. I thought I saw one that had temporal. Yeah. Temporal Lacune. I know he said it before. Lacune. I think that's what it is. Temporal Lacune. I may be pronunciating it right. Here is the card. Right here. So Lacune. I never pronunciate it right. My hooked on phonics is broken, but the temporal. So I think this is kind of similar. It says words such as after, then, while, when, and within X amount of time indicates a leap through time. Liars often use these terms to omit incriminating parts of their story. So I would like to learn how to pronunciate that. I know I said it right once before, but I know I'm pronouncing it wrong right now. But anyway, so that gives you an idea of what that means. And it says, observed here, 17 minutes, fell asleep quickly. Nothing happened because I was asleep. Forensic interpretation, compressed time frames are common when speaker wants to reduce exposure. So again, these are things law enforcement is looking at. So they're noticing this stuff. And we're going to get into that here shortly as well. So strategic use of sleep and unconsciousness. Indicator, claiming sleep to avoid observation or responsibility, right? Who became a veterinarian, a doctor? Did somebody become a vet? Aww. Who became a vet? Well, let's give you a round of applause. I don't know who you are. Somebody put in here who became a vet. Not yet. I have a job next week starting. Oh, I am so proud of you. Well, congratulations. I have a Delilah. Well, we now know who to reach out to. Don't worry, I feed my dog. I know you're gonna kill me, and it's not my fault. I don't feed it to her. I let her lick it because she gives me those puppy eyes, and I know it's really bad for her. But don't worry, nothing's happened. I just let her lick, and I don't even know if it's real chocolate. And everybody's like, Betty, it's not my fault. Like I make brownies, and you know how you drop crumbs? Well, she eats crumbs. It's not my fault. I'm a messy eater, and she's just right there with Horsehead and Hilton and aw. Oh, I love it. Oh, that's wonderful. That is wonderful. Well, we're definitely so proud of you. Oh, look at those three. I just noticed the three beautiful babies. Aw. Those are cute. Aw. Well, congratulations. Congratulations. So now let's go to this strategic use of sleep and unconsciousness. And it's, again, we're claiming to be sleep to avoid observation or responsibility. Observed here, repeated reliance on being asleep, sleep used as an explanatory shield. So I think both repeated reliance on being asleep and sleep being used as explanatory shield. So forensic interpretation of this is sleep claims are non-verifiable and frequently exploited in deceptive narratives. And that's one thing that we've all said is that we have three parents here, right? We have the biological father, the biological mother, and the stepfather, right? And out of all three of these people, Seth is the only one with a verifiable alibi. Because the other two people that are involved in this story is the mother, the biological mother, and the stepfather. And both of their alibis is I was sleeping. Seth was on video. He was at work. He was working. He was working at a jail. So you're talking about a very secured facility with a lot of cameras going into the facility and coming out of the facility. Seth was at the jail. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And Chris and Katie's statements are they were asleep. That is their alibi. That is their alibi. Not Seth's. That's theirs. And again, the sleep claims are non-verifiable and frequently exploited in deceptive narratives. Now, 3 is a selective sensory recall. This is an indicator, remembering isolated details while claiming general unawareness. This is important because many of us throughout the last 2 years, almost 2 years, we have been saying the same thing. It's so funny that they have specific answers for X, Y, and Z, but not A, B, and C. So what's observed here is cannot recall action or awareness and can recall a specific thud and time. So the forensic interpretation of this is a classic red flag. This is the first time. Oh, thank you. Sonia has gifted 10 Bullhorn Betty memberships. And there's quite a few here. So let's take a few moments because I'm a love machine. For you 10 beautiful people, by the way, thank you so much, Sonia. Let's give her a big round.
Feed fear a suck it sandwich.
Yeah.
You are a badass.
There you go.
I'm a smart, strong, sensual woman.
Okay. Welcome to this crazy family we call the Coffee Club. I eat the insane asylum. Grab your straitjacket and your padded room and welcome aboard. And many of you guys have been part of this family for a while, like Oakley. Thank you for being, you are now official. You are now official. Chewy's mom, welcome aboard to this crazy family. Maria, Valley Gal, Catherine, Maria. Oops, I went up too high. Hold on, I lost my place. Hold on, here we go. Big Teo, Mountain Man Swag. It's nice to see you, Mountain Man. I don't get any of that swag. Why do I have a Mountain Man swag up in here, but I don't have any Mountain Man swag? Just saying. Not playing. Matthew, it's nice to have you. And Cherish, good morning. It's nice to have you guys, all fabulous members of this fabulous show we call the Coffee Club. It's nice to see you. So this is the first time that we've had the classic red flag. It said forensic interpretation on this isolated memory recall, this thud that just came out of nowhere, right? This is a classic red flag that the chat GPT is saying under the forensic interpretation, saying truthful memory degrades evenly, deceptive memory does not. Oh, wow, that's a great statement. Did you guys hear that? Listen to this statement. Makes sense. Truthful memory degrades evenly. Right? So what does that mean? That means if you can't remember the story almost evenly, right? But if you're deceptive, your memory does not degrade evenly. It's selective, right? You remember the most details about this item, but it's like, I can't remember. I don't know. You know, I'm really horrible on times, but you knew at 10 p.m. you heard this. Yeah. But you don't know what time this was. Oh, no. No, I'm bad with time, right? Classic red flag. Deceptive memory does not degrade evenly. It's selective. Vagueness. So this is number 4. Vagueness where specificity is expected. Vagueness where specificity is expected. Laura says, thud turned into a bang, in my opinion. Yeah, well, I'm starting. I'd like to know if she has any firearms in the house after hearing that revelation. So we have vague where specificity is expected. Lack of natural details. Experiential? Okay. Lack of natural details and experiential claims. So observed here, studying what subject, what material, thud, from where, how loud, reaction. None of these things, these were very vague. Vague. Very vague. Deception accounts often lack sensory richness because they're constructed, not experienced. Ooh, I like that. Listen. Deception accounts often lacks sensory richness because they're not constructed, because they're constructed. They're constructed. Deceptive accounts are constructed, not experienced. Interesting. I love that. It expresses it very well. Oh, thank you, Sandy. Why did she put the dogs up that night? That could have been a lie too. Or she could have put them up because she was expecting people to come over and help her, and she didn't want the dogs running around. But it doesn't make sense because Chris let the cat out of the bag that she sleeps with the dogs in the bed. There was no reason to put them in the kennel. But this particular night she did. Very, very weird. We'll ask that. We'll ask that question, Sandy. Let me keep you up for a little minute until I get through this, and then we'll ask the question. Unnecessary precision. Indicator. Exact time used to appear credible. Observed here, 17 minutes, around 10 p.m. Forensic interpretation. False narratives often include artificial precision to compensate for the weak substance. False narratives often articulate precision. False narratives include artificial precision to compensate for weak substance. Good gracious, if I could speak English today. 6. Cognitive dissonance with the narrative. So the indicator is mutually incompatible claims with the same account. So observed here, 1, asleep yet perceptive, and 2, unaware yet time specific, right? Forensic interpretation, truthful accounts may be messy, but they are not logically contradictory. So now we're on Section 3, which is forensic bottom line. Most likely false elements: 1, the speed of falling asleep, 2, continuous sleep during the call, and 3, the sudden occurrence while asleep. The overall assessment: this narrative aligns with defensive, alibi-oriented storytelling, not organic memory recall. Using Occam's razor and forensic interview standards, the simplest explanation is that the timeline was altered to reduce accountability or obscure awareness. Interesting. So, there you guys have it. So now, let me ask, also, this same person allegedly woke up around midnight and put dogs in a kennel that she never put dogs in, while her husband Okay, getting to yours, Sandy. Let's see here. So the additional fact materially strengthens the interference of deception and further undermines the credibility of the original narrative. From a forensic standpoint, it introduces a behavioral anomaly at a critical time window and compounds the internal contradiction already identified. Below is a structured analysis. So here you go, Sandy. So the significance of the midnight kenneling behavior. Fact pattern: husband is out of town. Person allegedly wakes around midnight. She kennels dogs despite never doing so previously. No established routine or necessity, and no contemporaneous explanation. So if you guys are wondering what we're talking about here, we learned from Christopher Proudfoot. Let me just give you guys all the information you need. We learned from Christopher Proudfoot that Sebastian Rogers, that Katie slept with the dogs in the bed when he was out of town. The only time the dogs went into their kennel was when he was home. He didn't like the dogs in the bed, so when he's not out of town, the dogs go into their kennel. But anytime he's not home, Katie likes the dogs in the bed. This was a statement that he made on the record as a statement of fact of Katie's behavior. However, this particular night, They're trying to say that she kenneled the dogs, that she put the dogs in the kennel. And again, Chris's statement about her always sleeping with the dogs in the bed when he was out of town came much later, and I'm pretty sure he forgot he had made this statement about her putting the dogs in the kennel, and he never explained why she would put the dogs in the kennel that night. I've never heard an explanation. So anyways, now that you guys understand what we're talking about, now we can go on over to this. So the fact pattern is his husband was out of town. Person allegedly awakes around midnight, and then she kennels the dogs despite never doing it. You know, I just told you the behavior. So now let's go to section 2. Why this behavior is forensically suspicious. Novel behavior without precedence. High evidentiary weight. So change animal handling routine suddenly. Wake from sleep to perform unfamiliar, non-urgent task. To do so only when a key household member is absent. In forensic interviews, this is classified as non-informative conduct. Key principles. Routine behaviors are stable. Stress, concealment, or even response produces changes. Yeah. Temporal proximity or prior claims. This behavior occurs, 1, after the alleged thud, after the extended claim of sleep and unawareness, and during a period otherwise framed as inactive or unconscious. This breaks the sleep narrative entirely. You now have asleep, aware of a sound, asleep, awakes at midnight, purposeful action. This is not continuous sleep. This is selective activity. Wow. Instrumental actions, not reflexive. That's what it says, reflexive. Never heard that word before. Gonna have to look it up. It says kenneling the dogs requires conscious decision-making, physical effort, interaction with animals that typically react to noise, and time and coordination. Forensic implications. If she could wake, reason, and execute an unfamiliar task, she was 1, not incapacitated, 2, not disoriented, and 3, capable of situational awareness. Now 4 is protective and containment motives. Investigators would immediately ask, why restrain the dogs? What were the dogs' reactions to? Were the dogs potential witnesses to noise, movement, or tracking? And was this done to prevent barking, interference, or discovery? Even if innocent, the optics are problematic because 1, the act aligns with containment, not care, and 2, there is no established habit to justify it. So now we're going to go over to section 3 with this question from Sandy. Deception indicators that adds to the narrative. 1, A, post-event behavioral changes. Indicator, sudden deviation from normal household routines. 2, observed, first ever kenneling while alone at midnight. Pretty interesting. Interpretation, consistent with stress response or scene management. Holy crap. I think she did something to this young boy. I mean, I think that this here really is honing in that something happened in that house. Just by this whole, we all knew there was something wrong with this whole telephone thing. I wish we had AI back, 2 years ago, because this could have helped clarify a lot of stuff. This is really problematic for me, folks. Very problematic. I hope if you guys are in the true crime community, you guys start clipping some of this stuff and start getting it out to people that we're doing here on AI so people can hear this information. Okay, now we're on B, delayed action after claimed unawareness. Indicator. Behaviors that suggest reaction to earlier events despite claims of ignorance. Observed, waking to kennel dogs after a thud and prolonged phone call. Interpretation implies earlier awareness or concern not previously disclosed. Inconsistent state of consciousness, shifting between asleep, aware, and functional as needed. Interesting. They did do that. So the observed is 1, asleep but hears a sound. 2 is asleep but stays on the phone. And 3 is asleep but wakes up to manage the dogs. This is very clarifying, is it not? This is a narrative convenience, not organic human behavior. B, absence of a trigger explanation. So truthful accounts naturally include 1, the dogs were barking, 2, they were relentless, and 3, something scared them. Here's the reason. Here, the reason is omitted. Why did she kennel the dogs when she didn't usually do that? So this is a forensic flag, a forensic red flag. When the action is described, but the motivation is missing, the motivation is often unfavorable. So, applying Occam's razor to this new edition, to accept the story as told, you must believe several things. 1, she fell asleep rapidly while studying. 2, she remained asleep on the phone for 90 minutes. 3, she heard and remembered a sound while sleeping. 4, later woke spontaneously. 5, performed a never-before-done task. And 6, without stress, cause, or connection to earlier events. That requires multiple stacked assumptions. The simpler explanation is she was awake longer than stated. The sleep narrative minimizes her awareness. The midnight kenneling was reactive, not routine. Her account is selectively constructed to obscure timing and knowledge. Occam razor strongly favors the latter. Bottom line, forensic assessment. With the added kenneling behavior, the sleep narrative collapses. The thud becomes more probative, not less. The individual demonstrates capacity for awareness and action. The account now aligns with defensive omission, not faulty memory. Defensive omission, not faulty memory. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. In an investigative context, this person would be classified as behaviorally inconsistent with their stated level of awareness. Did you guys hear me? Law enforcement would have attached or classified her as behaviorally inconsistent with their stated level of awareness. Wow. Wow. So as you guys see, there are some problems that exist in the case of Sebastian Rogers, which we knew. And lastly, as you guys see behind me, we got me with another Bed Ed Betty moment. There was a lot of this case that we were alive for, and there was a lot of these cases because sometimes we came live at midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. Okay, I'm not dressed to the nines. Hell, half of the days I wake up here, if I'm home, it's like, why am I going to put on makeup and do my hair and get all dressed up just to have to go in the bathroom and wash it all off, you know? So it's one of those things, you know, I kind of do what I do. I do what I do. At the end of the day, we've known that things didn't sound right with the case of Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers, and we're just trying to find a way to learn more, to we're trying to find a way to find Sebastian and prove his mom and his stepdad are responsible. Were they the only people we looked at? No, they were not the only people we looked at, and they weren't the only people law enforcement looked at. Okay, they looked at other family members, which we did. We looked at RSOs in the area. We looked at other criminals in the area. We looked at teachers. We looked at the father, the biological father. We looked at the green shirt hoodie person that allegedly is deceased. We learned about a lot. A lot, a lot, a lot. Yet, the one thing that has still baffled us is the inconsistencies, the flat out lies we've caught the mom and the dad in, and the forever changing story. And then to top all of that off with their very poor and disgusting and deplorable behavior that they have displayed for the world, right? For the world to see. So it's been quite the story, to say the least, about Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers. He has been forgotten by a lot of the people in his community, not by everybody. There's still a lot of people out there working almost overtime trying to find Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers. I mean, there's so many content creators that we can't even list here. And not only that, are there just content creators, but there's just average Joes out there like Mr. and Mrs. Car Guy. You know, they got with they were working very heavily with Silvers on the scene and going out there and just being an extra set of eyes and hands while there's been searching. They've gone out by themselves to search areas undisclosed and under the radar just to look for Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers. And we've got many other individuals that have done the same thing, much like Mr. and Mrs. Car Guy, much like Silvers on the scene. And God bless all of those people that have done that. God bless you for the work that you are doing, and thank you for keeping his story alive. I wish I could be more involved, you know, and I am trying to get more involved so we can go ahead and start working this case like we had a right to do 2 years ago before Sumner County decided to be a corrupt governmental body that prevented me to move freely, violated my civil rights. Let's call it what it is. Before Sumner County violated my civil rights. And we will get back to doing that because this boy still needs to be found. And obviously Sumner County doesn't even get off their ass to go even to check to see if anything has changed. They've done nothing. They've done zilch. They've done zero, nothing. They're just... It's going to be hard being out there on that road, looking at them and trying to give them a piece of my mind respectfully. I will tell you that. It's going to be very, very tough. But we will do it. We will do it because Sebastian needs us to do it. And that's what we're going to do. So I'm not sure what all this is going to say. It's an old story, an old clip that I did around this time. Again, I didn't listen to it. So we're going to listen to it together.
Put to the test and fact find whether or not hashtags can contact somebody.
I don't know if that's good. I hate when I put music behind it because I don't know if it's good music. I mean, I would think it was. What was 9 months ago? Oh yeah, then it should be good. It should be good because I would never. Okay.
Listen to this.
So, you know what's interesting to me, right? And
we don't need to watch that. That's absolutely nothing related to it. It's about the court hearing. So this was what was happening around the time that they got. That's why I pulled it up. I didn't watch it. I didn't know what was in here, but we don't need to watch it. Because at the end of the day, we all know that the court hearing was going on at that time. And one of the things they were trying to say is that I violated a court order for using hashtags, which is literally covered under the freedom of speech. But again, you can't help but, you know, people that don't have any common sense, brain cells, or any moral compass. You can't expect them to understand reason or logic. And if they did, they would probably have the mom and the stepdad in jail right now. But I digress. Muzzles help. I know. Yeah, they try to muzzle the wrong person. So, again, we're going to be out here in this area. February 23rd through the 28th. We're going to give Sumner County a piece of our mind, lawfully, legally, and respectfully. We're going to hold the sheriff's feet to the fire. Now, the sheriff, either way, I'm going to be out there for a week, whether he comes forward and speaks to the public or not. It doesn't matter. We're going to be live streaming it. We're going to constantly have live stream going while we're there. We're going to make sure that everybody that's in the community, we're going to have signs that say where they can tune in so they can hear what is going on. Because not only are we using this opportunity to advocate for Sebastian Rogers, we're going to use this opportunity to condemn their politics, to talk to the public about what many people have experienced in Sumner County. We're looking to take some of the votes away from these corrupted politicians as well. And there's something that can be said. I'm very successful in the work I do. I go all over this country. Like I tried to tell Sumner County before, you really don't want to screw with somebody that follows the law, especially somebody of my caliber. Okay? I know you guys think you can just railroad somebody because I only have 40,000 people, but you have no idea who you ran over. And that's fine. That's fine. I'm pretty sure you have a clue now. I'd leave your hands off me when I come into your county. I'd let me do my job lawfully and legally without any interference or violation of my civil rights. But that's okay. I'm going to have a camera in your face all the way to the jail. And if I can't, there will be people following behind the car. You have no idea. I am not going to play with a government, a corrupted government. We're out here to do a job. Leave me be. Please. It's in the best interest of everyone to leave Betty be. I don't break the law. I don't break the law. Anyways, guys, that's what we have to present right now. It is now 12:30. You guys go out, have your lunch, enjoy your day. We will be back here later this evening. I know I tell you guys sometimes, and sometimes we don't. But we are on go right now. We've got a lot of cases to go over. We got politics stuff to go over. So we are a very, very, very busy channel. It's just compiling the information and getting the information out to you as quickly as possible. I'm going to be doing a lot more videos. I'm going to start providing a lot more details because we are broadening our discussion points on this channel, which we've needed to do and we've needed to do for a long time. So if it's something that you guys like, please consider subbing up and continuing to support this channel. If not, have a good day, have a good life, and God bless you. We're going to continue to advocate on this channel as I see fit. And again, I'm not a clicks and views person, as you guys can tell. If I wanted clicks and views, I know how to get it. You guys know I have a record and a history of going out and getting whatever the heck I want to get. Why? Because I work my ass off for it. And I want to teach you guys that it just takes you and the willpower to get stuff done. And hopefully I can lead you guys by example and get you guys more inspired to help out across this country or find something that really inspires you to get involved with your own community. Anyways, God bless you. We will see you soon.